Chapter 1366. Xiao Nuo. It's really you. Ning, she was stunned. Looking at the embarrassed young man, she had no time to think. She hurriedly took off her coat and wrapped it tightly around the young man. Get in the car first. Ning, she hurriedly urged as she took the things from the young man and put them in the trunk. The young man stood uneasily outside the luxury car. Sister, I'm dirty. What are you talking about? Are you stupid because of the rain? Ning, she angrily pushed the young man in. The BMW sped away with the beauty and the young man. Behind them, the boss of the store was still dumbfounded. Just now, he seemed to have seen a rich and beautiful woman suddenly carrying a beggar away. That beauty looked like a superstar in the car. Ning, she turned on the heater and handed a towel to the young man. She looked terrible. Wipe yourself. What's wrong with you? Don't you know you're in poor health? Don't you know how to hide in the rain? Why did you suddenly come to the capital? Why didn't you tell me you were coming? Don't you have my cell phone number and new address? Listening to the nagging, the young man couldn't help crying. His tears fell on the back of his hand. Ning, she was anxious. Why are you crying? What the hell happened? Who bullied you? Tell me. Tang Nuo shook his head and hurriedly wiped away his tears. He looked a little embarrassed. No, I haven't seen you for a long time. I'm crying with joy. You brat. Ning, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but she was still keenly aware that Tang Nuo was not in a good state. She planned to ask him about it when they went back. Half an hour later, Ning, she took Tang Nuo back to the villa. Looking at the luxurious house in front of him, Tang Nuo's eyes were full of amazement. Sister, you're amazing. It turns out that you really moved to a big house. Of course. Why would I lie to you? I told you I'm popular now. Don't you watch TV? Well, let's talk later. Go take a hot bath first. Ning, she found him a man's suit and gave it to him. She pushed him into the bath and told him in detail how to use the bathroom. After Tang Nuo went in, Ning, she sat on the sofa in the living room. Her mind was filled with the image of Tang Nuo in a pitiful state. For a moment, her eyes were filled with gloominess. Ever since she was young, she had the best relationship with her younger brother, Tang Nuo. Although she was weak and could be easily bullied, if someone dared to bully Tang Nuo, she would definitely stand up immediately. How could she bear to see her beloved younger brother being bullied like this? It was not until she heard footsteps and Tang Nuo came out of the shower that Ning, she immediately put away her gloomy face. She pulled the boy to sit beside her and asked seriously, "Tell me what's going on?" Tang Nuo immediately said, "No, nothing much. I'm just taking advantage of the holiday to travel to Imperial City. I didn't want to trouble you, so I didn't tell you. After all, they had grown up together for 18 years. Ning, she could tell at a glance that the young man was lying. Did something happen at home? The young man immediately tensed up. No, everything is fine at home. What could possibly happen? Seeing that the boy was still unwilling, Ning, she deliberately emphasized, since you treat me as an outsider and refuse to tell me, then forget it. I won't force you. Hearing Ning Shi's words, Tang Nuo was so anxious that his eyes turned red. Sister, I just don't want you to worry. Chapter 1367. Ning Shi's face changed. So, something really happened at home? Tang Nuo knew that he couldn't hide it any longer. He clenched his fists tightly and didn't want to say anything. However, he was worried that Ning Shi would misunderstand that he treated her as an outsider, so he could only speak intermittently. Something did happen at home. You know, Dad has a soft spot. Some time ago, he was tricked into borrowing a large sum of money from a worker he met at a construction site. In the end, now he can't get it back. How much? Ning Shi asked with a frown. It's probably all of our savings and even the money you've transferred to us a few times. It's a total of 600,000 yuan. Our family was going to buy a house in town, but now we can't even afford my school fees. Grandma got sick from anger some time ago. We borrowed money to pay for her medical fees. The young man's expression became more and more awkward as he spoke. Ning Shi was silent for a while and said in a low voice, "You went to see Ning Shui, didn't you?" The young man hurriedly explained, "Because I really had nowhere else to go. Otherwise, I definitely wouldn't have come looking for her." In the end, I really shouldn't have come. Ningxi probably knew what happened after the young man went to find Ningxi, even if he didn't say it. Ningxi was about to say, "Why didn't you come to me?" But she swallowed her words. She sighed and said, "Okay, I got it. You've been running around for the whole day, so you must be tired. Stay with me for the night and have a good rest. I'll accompany you home tomorrow." Tang Nua immediately looked up. "Sis," in case the young man refused, Ningxi interrupted him. "If you still think I'm your sister, cut the crap and go to sleep. The fact that you went to look for Ning Xiulua today and didn't look for me has already made me very angry." Since Ningxi had already said this, Tang Nua had no choice but to go to sleep uneasily. In fact, he had always hoped that his sister could return. However, when his mother said those words, it must have hurt her heart. No matter how much he missed her, how could he dare to ask her to come back? Even when such a big thing happened at home, he didn't have the face to trouble her. But now, he still had to trouble her, late at night. Tonight was still a sleepless night. She walked quietly to the boy's room, tucked him in, and quietly watched the boy's sleeping face for a while. Go back. It would be good to go back. Perhaps returning to the very beginning would help her sober up. Early the next morning, Ningxi took Tang Nua to City C. After settling things there as soon as possible, she would rush back to see Lu Tingxiao in the evening. To avoid being recognized, Ningxi disguised herself as usual. This time, she was dressed as a simple and adorable village girl. Tang Nua looked at the girl in front of him, who was wearing a flowery skirt and had 2 braids. Her cheeks were rosy, and tears welled up in his eyes. After such a long time, even though he missed her, he didn't dare to look for her because he was afraid. He was afraid that the sister in his memories would never come back. Fortunately, his sister was still here. Ningxi knew that she hadn't slept well for several days. She didn't dare to drive when she was tired, so she took the long-distance bus back with Tang Nua. Tang Nua didn't mind at all. Instead, he was very happy and at ease. The siblings chatted about their own matters along the way and soon restored their previous intimacy, as if they had never been separated. Chapter 1368. Halfway there, Ningxi took out her phone, found Lu Jingli's number, and sent him a text message. "Lu Jingli, I'm going to City C to settle some matters with my foster parents, but I'll be back tonight. Help me tell your brother that I'll meet him when I return to the capital." At the same time, in the Platinum Palace. Upstairs, in Lu Tingxiao's study, the man maintained his stiff posture and had been sitting there for an entire night. There was a knock on the door, and Lu Jingli cautiously walked in. "Brother, just now, little Cece texted me and asked me to tell you that she has to go to her foster parents' place in City C to deal with some matters, but she will definitely rush back tonight. She also said that when she comes back, she will directly come to see you." At this point, Lu Jingli's eyes turned, and he immediately suggested, "Bro, why don't I text little Cece and tell her that I'll see her another day? It's such a long journey, so she won't be in such a hurry to come back." He was so quick-witted. Every day he could drag on was one day at a time. There was silence in the quiet study, and time seemed to slow down to the extreme. Every minute and every second passed extremely slowly. After some time, Lu Tingxiao stood up, picked up his coat and car keys, and walked out the door. Lu Jingli's expression immediately changed. "Brother, where was he going? Was he going to City C? Wasn't he courting death?" Actually, he felt that he could still be saved. Lu Jingli opened his mouth to speak, but when he saw Lu Tingxiao's expression, he was stunned speechless. He could only watch as Lu Tingxiao walked out of his sight. That figure, inexplicably, he thought of the saying, "The wind is howling, the water is cold, and the warrior will never return." He knew that what awaited him might be death, but because his beloved was there, he had to go forward without hesitation, even if he had to go through a mountain of knives and a sea of fire. After a bumpy journey, Ningxi finally saw the familiar yet strange village not far away. After 5 years, she came back to the place where she had stayed for 18 years. She was in a trance for a moment, as if it had been a lifetime. Her carefree 18 years were also the beginning of all her nightmares. After the passage of time, There was only a faint sense of loss and nostalgia. Sister, there's still a long way to go before we get home. I'll call an ox cart. Tang Nua was afraid that she couldn't walk, so he said. Ning, she collected her thoughts. Don't call an ox cart. Don't I know how to walk? Oh. Tang Nua was quite happy being glared at. He was most afraid that Ning, she would be polite to him and treat him the same as before, which made him feel indescribably comfortable. As Ning, she walked forward, she asked, what's the background of the person who borrowed the money? Tang Nua said in a low voice, that guy is called Hong Bin. He used to work in Sea City and just returned to the village not long ago. He said that he used to work for some big boss, but in fact, he's just a hooligan who only knows how to brag. Tang Nua said in a low voice, his name is Hong Bin. He used to work in High City and just came back to the village not long ago. He said that he used to work for some big boss, but he's just a hooligan who only knows how to brag. I've told Dad many times not to associate with this kind of person, but after a few drinks, he called him brother and even took out all his money. The more Tang Nua spoke, the worse his expression became. Then he hurriedly said, but sis, don't worry about this. We've already called the police. We'll definitely get it back. Chapter 1369. How could Ning, she believe Tang Nua's words? If calling the police worked, he wouldn't be forced to look for Ning Xiulua. After walking for about 20 minutes, they finally arrived at the place. Ning, she was about to prepare herself when she heard a loud noise coming from inside as soon as she arrived at the door. It was mixed with several men cursing and swearing, and her adoptive mother Sun Lan was screaming and crying. Ah, stop it, stop it. Please don't hit me anymore. Fuck you, Tang Shan. How dare you call the police? I'll beat you to death today. Who dares to say a word? Bitch, what are you yelling for? I'll cut off your tongue if you call me again. Dad, Mom, go away. What are you doing? How dare you come to my house in broad daylight? Do you have any respect for the law? Law. I am the law. Xiao. Xiao. Why are you back? Go. Go. Sun Lan was anxious. Hey, son, you're back. You came back at the right time. Did you go to borrow money from your sister in the capital? Give me the money now. If I'm in a good mood, maybe I can let your father live a few more days. Hong Bin said in a rascally tone. Hong Bin, don't go too far. Tang Shan's face was bruised and swollen, and he was barely breathing as he spoke. Unfortunately, his words were not threatening at all. Sun Lan screamed, Xian'o, go. Don't give them the money. Bitch, you're courting death. Hong Bin stared at her fiercely. Give me the money. Do you want to die? Tang Nua looked at his mother, who kept asking him to leave and not to give him the money. His face was full of bitterness and self-mockery. Mom, that's enough. I don't have a penny. Why do you think I borrowed money? I told you she wouldn't lend us money. I'm afraid she wants us dead. Sun Lan's face suddenly changed. Xian'o, what nonsense are you talking about? Nonsense? I went to find her, but I didn't even see her. She kicked me out like a beggar. She said she didn't have a brother. Don't you understand? She has never treated us as family. All of Tang Nua's humiliation exploded at this moment. Sun Lan and Tang Shan's expressions immediately turned ugly. Although they did not believe it, their son would not lie. Sun Lan kept shaking her head. That's impossible. Shueluo wouldn't be so heartless. She must be too busy and doesn't have time to see you. Or are you looking for the wrong place? Tang Nua's heart was filled with helplessness. He did not want to continue explaining to his self-deceiving mother. Hong Bin was getting impatient. I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. I don't care if you want to borrow, rob, or invest. Take the money and be done with it. Give me 100,000 yuan. I'll spare your dog life today. Otherwise, under the double blow from their biological daughter and the robber in front of them, Sun Lan and Tang Shan's faces were filled with despair and silence. Tang Shan lost control and roared, Hong Bin, don't go too far. You borrowed money from me and didn't return it first. I had no choice but to call the police. Now, not only did you hurt me, but you also want to extort money from me. You're an animal. Hong Bin was infuriated. His face was full of malice as he said, eerily, Animal? I'll let you see what a real animal is. Do you think that only women are worth money these days? Rich people these days have a lot of different tastes. Your son's looks are not bad. I think selling him for 100,000 yuan would be more. Chapter 1370. Before Hong Bin could finish his words, the next second, with a pa sound, his whole body was slapped to the side by a palm, and a mouthful of blood foam came out from his mouth. Fuck! Who is it? Don't you want to live? Hong Bin's few companions hurriedly surrounded and looked towards the door, only to see, standing at the door was a pretty little girl, wearing simple coarse clothes, with 2 braids, looking very delicate, but the expression on her face made people feel cold from the bottom of their hearts. Sister. Tang Nua then thought of Ning Shi, hurriedly blocked in front of Ning Shi. When Tang Shan and Sun Lan heard Tang Nua call sister, they also looked towards the door at the same time. Xiao Nua, what did you say? Shueluo came? Shueluo? When they saw the face of the girl at the door, both of them were instantly dumbfounded. It doesn't seem to be Shueluo. It's Tang Shi. It's Xiao Shi. How could it be Xiao Shi? Didn't Xiao Nua go to look for Shueluo? Hong Bin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. At this moment his face was extremely ugly. You're Tang Shan's daughter? You got guts. Do you know who I am? You even dare to hit me. His few companions also fiercely echoed. Smelly girl, do you want to die? Fuck, Brother Bin, just take both of them away. This girl is really not bad. Isn't that so? Look at this skin, look at this little face. There's no one as smooth as this. I didn't expect Tang Shan to have such a beautiful daughter. Listening to those people's filthy words, Tang Nua's eyes were red with anger. If you dare to touch a single hair of my sister, I'll take your life. Sun Lan also didn't care why Ning Shi came. She pulled the impulsive Tang Nua back. Xiao Nua, don't act recklessly. Don't talk nonsense with them, brothers go. Ning Shi looked at the time on her watch. Her expression was slightly impatient. 5 minutes later, the 5 ferocious and domineering men just a moment ago were now lying on the ground in a disorderly manner. As for Tang Shan, Sun Lan, and Tang Nua, they were completely dumbfounded. Ning Shi stepped on Hong Bin's wrist, letting him wail like a pig being slaughtered. When she turned to Tang Nua, her eyes became a little gentler, and she explained, if I don't beat them hard and make them submit, I'm afraid they will come to you again if I leave. Ah, boss, spare me. Spare my life. I won't do it again. I'll never cause trouble for Big Brother Tang again. Hong Bin's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. Ning Shi's methods seemed ordinary, but in fact, they were all very particular. On the surface, there were no terrible marks, but they could make you feel so much pain that you wanted to die. You would even feel inexplicable pain for several months without being able to find out the reason. She usually didn't use these insidious methods, but this time, she had broken her rule. Just don't cause trouble? Ning, she said coldly. You still have money? I'll return it immediately. I'll return it immediately. Just paying back the money is enough. There's still interest. Interest will be added too. In the end, the few of them pooled together about 700,000 and gave it all to Tang Shan. Only then did Ning, she let them go. Hong Bin and the others had all disappeared, and the room suddenly seemed a little empty. Suddenly, there was 700,000 in cash on the table. Sun Lan helped Tang Shan, who was lying on the ground, up. The two of them looked at each other, and when they saw Ning Shi's expression, their eyes were full of shock and uncertainty. Chapter 1371. Sissy, you're amazing. Where did you learn all this? Oh, I almost forgot. You said in an interview that you were a martial arts stunt double when you first entered the industry abroad. I thought it was just for show. I didn't expect you to be so amazing. Sis, can you teach me when you have time? Then I won't have to worry about being bullied. Tang Nua's expression and excited words made Ning Shi's heavy heart relax a lot. She rubbed the boy's hair and said, okay, if there's a chance. Seeing the strange atmosphere in the room, Tang Nua hurriedly reminded his parents, Mom, Dad, say something. I'm finally back. The two of them seemed to wake up from a dream. Tang Shan seemed to not know how to face this daughter who had changed so much in 5 years. He said awkwardly, Xiaoxi, thank you so much this time. If it weren't for you, alas. Look, you've encountered such a thing as soon as you came back. Have you eaten? I'll cook for you. Ning, she couldn't tell how she felt when she saw the family members who used to be the closest to her treated her so carefully. She hurriedly said, "Don't bother. I have something to do today and have to go back immediately. I'll come back to see you when I have time." "Okay. Xiaoxi, go and see them off." "No, Xiaoxi, Mom and Dad are frightened. Stay with them and take Dad to the hospital to be bandaged." Ning, she tried to ignore the relieved look on Sun Lan and Tang Shan's faces when she said she was going to leave. She quickly turned around and left. Behind them, Sun Lan and Tang Shan were stunned when they heard Ning, she calling them Dad and Mom. Then their eyes turned red at the same time. That was Xiaoxi. That was their daughter. It had been 5 years. She finally came back, but they just let her go like this. Ning, she didn't know how she left the Tang family. She felt as if her whole body was soaked in salty seawater, heavy and sticky, and every step she took all her strength. The huge negative emotions in the darkness of her soul all wrapped around her like a ghost at this moment. She seemed to be an unlucky person who had been losing things since she was born, losing the most important thing around her. The harder she tried to catch it, the faster it disappeared. Only when she gave up everything would she not lose. The road ahead seemed to be covered with a layer of fog. Through that layer of fog, she could vaguely see someone in front of her under the fiery sunset glow, the familiar black Maybach, the familiar tall figure. Every time, that figure was like a dazzling ray of sunlight that broke through the fog and illuminated her world at this moment. It was like a death knell, causing her expression to change drastically. Lu Tingxiao. Is everything settled? Lu Tingxiao didn't know how long he had been waiting there. There was a pile of cigarette butts by his feet, and his body exuded a faint smell of tobacco. Ning, she stood there in a daze. The moment she saw Lu Tingxiao, the determination she had put in so much effort and used so many days to make suddenly shattered into powder. He didn't want to lose this person. Chapter 1372. Yes, it's done. Ning, she tried to sound normal and asked, "Didn't I tell Lu Jingli to tell you that I would look for you when I got back? Why did you come all the way here? It's such a long way." "Because I could see you earlier." Lu Tingxiao didn't seem to notice the girl's strange expression. He walked around and opened the car door for her. Ning, she took a deep breath and got into the car mechanically. Lu Tingxiao started the engine, and the car slowly drove out of the narrow road with a slight jolt. The car was quiet, and no one spoke for a while. Outside the car window, the familiar scenery and the small village passed by quickly, just like the lights that left her life one by one. They had already left the village road and entered the main road. The road became wider and wider. Because it was remote, there wasn't a single car on the road. Lu Tingxiao's slender fingers held the steering wheel, and he looked at the road ahead calmly. Suddenly, a fair and soft hand pulled the steering wheel from his hands. Squeak! After the ear-piercing sound of the tires scraping against the ground, the car suddenly changed from the left to the right and drove all the way into a wide wheat field. Ning Shi! Lu Tingxiao was caught off guard by the girl's extremely dangerous behavior. His originally cold face suddenly became turbulent, and he shouted angrily. The next second, the seat behind Lu Tingxiao was pushed down by the girl with a bang. The man's eyes that were filled with anger instantly disappeared when the girl suddenly approached him, as well as the cold softness on his lips. Ning Shi's body trembled violently. She pressed on the man's body and kissed him hard as if she was at the end of a rope. Lu Tingxiao couldn't care about anything else at this moment. He cursed under his breath and pressed the back of the girl's head with his wide palm, kissing her back even more intensely. Ning Shi kissed the man in front of her with all her might. Her cold fingers slid over the man's hair, chest, and lower abdomen. Click! It was the sound of his belt being unbuckled. Lu Tingxiao took a deep breath, and his scalp went numb. His eyes were suddenly filled with intense anger as he grabbed the girl's wrist. Damn it! Damn woman! What did she mean? What did she want? During the time he was dating Ning Shi, Lu Tingxiao was always paying attention to the internet to keep up with the times. Lu Jingli was also influenced by him. In this situation, 3 words immediately appeared in his mind. Break up sex. Was that what Ning Shi meant? Did she do it with him once before breaking up? What was this? Compensation? Thinking of this, Lu Tingxiao's heart turned cold as if it had fallen into an ice house. Ningxi lowered her head and looked at the man's large palm that was grabbing her wrist. Because she was too angry, even her veins were bulging. Being stopped by Lu Tingxiao, Ningxi sat on the man's body in a daze. After a long while, she let out a mocking laugh. Lu Tingxiao, you really don't have to do this. I'm not some pure and innocent girl. It's not my first time. Lu Tingxiao looked at Ningxi's self-loathing eyes. His heart ached for her, but at the same time, he felt angry. Ningxi, do you think I care about something like that? Chapter 1373. Ningxi raised her head and looked at the man in front of her quietly. Her pupils were dark without any light. Lu Tingxiao, it's not my first time. You don't care, do you? Then what if I wasn't a virgin when I was only 18 years old 5 years ago? What if I had sex with a strange man who I didn't even know who he was at the age of 18? What if I was pregnant with his child and gave birth to a stillborn bastard? In the end, Ningxi was almost hysterical, and her body was trembling uncontrollably. The girl's desperate voice echoed in his ears like a trapped beast. Lu Tingxiao suddenly froze, and a strange expression appeared on his face, as if he had been redeemed. Lu Tingxiao seemed to be afraid of disturbing the girl, so he asked very softly and slowly, Ningxi, is this what you said you wanted to talk to me about today? Ningxi clenched her fingers as if all her strength had been drained, as if waiting for the final judgment. Yes. Just as the girl finished speaking, she felt the world spin around her. By the time she came back to her senses, the man had already turned the tables and pressed down on her body. A scorching and intense kiss mixed with the man's joy of surviving a disaster fell on her. The man's kiss was so intense that it was boiling with love. One after another, it landed on the girl's forehead, nose, cheeks, lips, collarbone. Although he didn't say anything, Ningxi could feel the man's emotions from this kiss. Lu Tingxiao's reaction seemed to be different from what she had imagined. While she was in a daze, her lips were suddenly bitten hard. Ningxi immediately exclaimed, her eyes watery as she looked accusingly at the culprit. Lu Tingxiao's eyes were burning with rage. I'll ask you again. You asked me to meet today. Is that what you wanted to talk about? Ningxi nodded subconsciously. Yes. As soon as she finished speaking, the man kissed her fiercely again. After a long while, the man let her go and asked again, you have nothing else to say, right? Ningxi didn't dare to say yes this time. She asked blankly, what did you think I was going to say? Although Ningxi didn't answer yes this time, Lu Tingxiao's face turned even uglier for some reason. This time, he kissed her even harder than before, as if he was punishing her. The wheat was rolling. In the closed carriage, after a long time, the man's long and hot kiss finally ended. Ningxi, in your eyes, am I the kind of person who goes back on his word? In your heart, are my feelings for you so easily shaken? I've said it before. Even if you have a past separation that I didn't participate in, I don't care about your heinous crimes. Do you think I'm lying to you? I'm the one who's been deceived. Ningxi said uncontrollably. Lu Tingxiao held the girl who was about to break down in his arms and said slowly in her ear, Ningxi, listen to me. You didn't lie to me. You warned me from the beginning. You warned me from the beginning. It was me who seduced you. It was me who provoked you. It was me who forced you to tear open your most private wound in front of me. And I was so fierce to you just now. It's my fault. Don't be angry with me. I thought you wanted to break up with me. Ningxi had been holding back her tears until now. They fell silently together with the shadow that had been pressing on her for 5 years. Chapter 1374. Lu Tingxiao carefully held the girl in his arms and patted her gently to comfort her. His eyes were filled with love. In fact, when he first met Ningxi, he had already vaguely guessed that she might have had some unpleasant experiences in the past, combined with her fear and rejection of some intimate acts, and even her aversion to men. Therefore, he never pried into her past or asked too many questions. He was especially careful when it came to matters between men and women. He didn't want to scare her even if he had to endure it to the extreme. The girl was like a little beast that had been fatally injured and was extremely wary of humans. At first, she quietly poked her head out of the hole, then carefully crawled out and looked at him curiously. Then, she boldly tested his fingers, jumped onto his lap, and slept soundly. She even dared to cause trouble in front of him. She tested him bit by bit until she was sure that he was harmless, that he was gentle, until today. She took off all her armor, destroyed all her thorns, and destroyed all her protection. This wound that was 100 times more tragic than he had expected tore open the weakest and softest part of her heart. It was like a sacrifice, placed in front of him. Lu Tingxiao's chest swelled. He hugged the girl tightly in his arms, wishing he could melt into her bones. Apart from being touched and feeling heartache, the man's eyes were dark. It seemed that what he had heard from Ning Shuo in the past was true. Ning Shu also knew about this and used it as the biggest trump card against Ning Shi. Other than that, he realized that there were too many suspicious points in Ning Shi's words. A strange man that she didn't even know who he was. Why would she have a relationship with a strange man? Since she was forced, why would she keep that man's child after finding out that she was pregnant? It has something to do with Ning Shuo? Lu Tingxiao asked with certainty. Ning Shi thought that she would never be able to tell him what had happened back then. After all, even the best hypnotist in the United States who had treated her back then had failed to make her talk about her past. However, at this moment, listening to the man's voice, she said naturally, "Back then, I had always treated Ning Shuo as a good sister and wasn't on guard against her at all. I didn't expect her to be with Su Yan behind my back. On the night of Su Yan's birthday, she drugged me and then arranged for 2 male prostitutes." Lu Tingxiao suddenly tightened his arms. "Don't say it if you don't want to." Ning Shi shook her head and continued carelessly. "I believed her and went to the room she told me to find Su Yan. However, there was an accident. I went into the wrong room. The man in the room was not the 2 male prostitutes Ning Shuo arranged for me, but the strange man whom I still don't know." Ning Shi's body trembled as she recalled what had happened at that time. Lu Tingxiao, don me? Let me finish. If you don, I warn you, you will be, she said. Ning Shi looked up and continued. After I entered the room, I lost consciousness because of the drug. I didn't know anything at the time. I didn't know that I had been set up by Ning Shuo, nor did I know that Su Yan had betrayed me. I only knew that when I woke up the next morning, the person on the bed was Su Yan, so I naturally thought that I had sex with Su Yan, and that was what Su Yan told me. Chapter 1375. Ning Shi smiled bitterly. You can probably guess what happened next. After I got pregnant, I thought the child was Su Yan, so I insisted on keeping it. At that time, Su Yan was on a business trip to a very remote place abroad. He didn't come back until I was almost 8 months pregnant. After he came back, he told me the truth. The person that night wasn't him. The child wasn't his. He saw what Ning Shuo did to me, and in order to cover up Ning Shuo's crime, he said that the person that night was him. When Ning Shuo told me the truth, I was so emotional that I crossed the road and got into a car accident. The child died when it was born. That was probably the only mercy God had for me. Otherwise, I really didn't know how to face and treat this child. Ning Shi said all this in one breath. All the emotions from that year surfaced in her heart at this moment. Do you know how I felt at that time? The world was falling apart. Ning Shuo and Su Yan didn't know that I actually suspected Su Yan's words from the beginning. Although my memory of that night was very messy, I felt that it was impossible to forget. That strange man was very scary. I was in pain. It was very painful. The pain that I felt like I was going to die. After that, I had a high fever for a week, and I had to lie in bed for more than a month before I recovered. When I went to see the doctor, that shameful feeling, I still can't forget at that time. The only person who supported me that night was Su Yan. I didn't even dare to think about it. If that person wasn't my boyfriend, I didn't even dare to think about the consequences, so I kept lying to myself until I couldn't lie anymore, until I paid a greater price. Ning Shi paused and continued. Later, my fear of men followed me like a shadow. I extremely hated and rejected contact with men. That time 5 years ago, was the only time I experienced it. I saw a psychiatrist for a long time, but there was no result. But in the end, I didn't care anymore. After listening to everything Ningxi said, especially when she mentioned the strange man, Lu Tingxiao's eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. Who is that man? Ningxi's body trembled subconsciously. I don't know. I checked for a long time, but there were no clues, and I'm not sure if it was arranged by Ning Shueluo. It's like that person has never appeared in this world. After saying all this, Ningxi's face was blank. She stared blankly at the man in front of her. I'm done. This is my past. You're so good that sometimes I despicably think if only you were a little worse, a little worse. Lu Tingxiao stared at the girl in front of him with a frown and said sternly, Ningxi, let me tell you clearly. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You like me and love me, so you think everything about me is good. My first and only time was with another woman. I even left behind a child, a stain on my life that I will never be able to erase. Nonsense. Xiaobao is not a stain. Ningxi's blank expression suddenly disappeared. Instead, she stared at him with a very serious look. Lu Tingxiao laughed helplessly. That's right. For me, everything that happened to you is not a stain either. No matter what kind of experience and past, it's you. It's you now, the you I love the most. Chapter 1376. Thank you. Lu Tingxiao lowered his head and kissed the girl's lips. Ningxi looked puzzled. Thank me for what? Looking at the girl's innocent look, Lu Tingxiao's face darkened. He gritted his teeth and said, Thank you for saying this instead of breaking up with me. Thank you for not killing me. Ahem, not killing me. Ningxi was stunned. Well, I wanted to ask you why. Did you think I wanted to break up with you? Isn't your way of thinking a little too stupid? Realizing Lu Tingxiao's expression, Ningxi immediately changed her tone. Ahem, how could I be so stupid to break up with you? Lu Tingxiao pinched his eyebrows with a dark face. In fact, he also felt that he was so stupid to be led into a ditch by Lu Jingli. It was only at this moment that Ningxi finally understood why Lu Tingxiao's attitude was so strange. He stared at her as if she was a heartless man who had abandoned him. He wished he could strangle her to death. At the same time, hidden in the depths of his deep eyes was the fear and nervousness of losing everything in the next second. He was afraid that she would break up with him. Ningxi recalled her recent state and attitude towards Lu Tingxiao. Not only was she emotionally unstable, but she had also been avoiding him. But now she asked Lu Tingxiao to meet on the weekend and said that she had something to tell him. Well, it was really easy to misunderstand at dusk in the Platinum Palace in the capital. At the gate of the villa, in the cool night wind, a sad and sorrowful song was floating. Little cabbage, yellow in the field, 2 or 3 years old, no mother. Living a good life with Daddy, but I'm afraid Daddy will marry a stepmother. Marry a stepmother 3.5 years, give birth to a brother, better than me. My brother eats noodles. I drink soup, holding the bowl with tears in my eyes. In the living room, on the sofa, Little Bun helplessly pinched his eyebrows and stepped towards the door. Little Bun, my poor Little Bun. As soon as he saw Little Bun, Lu Jingli immediately burst into tears and hugged Little Bun, sobbing. What if after little Cece left, the house returned to its original state? What if I can no longer eat such delicious food? I feel so hopeless. Little Bowsy really didn't have any other choice. He could only put on a straight face and use his little hands to gently pat this emotional second uncle, comforting his wounded heart. The sound of a car engine came from afar. Lu Jingli immediately pricked up his ears and looked not far away. Then, she saw her brother's familiar car slowly drive to the door. Lu Jingli's heart was in his throat. Then, he saw the car door open and his brother get out of the driver's seat alone. But soon, Lu Tingxiao went to the front passenger seat and carried a girl out of the car. Lu Jingli's eyes widened. Did his brother knock Cece out? Well, judging from little Cece's martial arts, this doesn't seem very likely. Seeing that Papa and Mama were back, little Bowsy was finally relieved. If they didn't come back, second uncle would go crazy. Brother, what's going on? You guys, Lu Jingli asked all the way until Lu Tingxiao carried Ning Shi upstairs to the bedroom, carefully placed her on the bed, and covered her with the quilt. Chapter 1377. After tucking the girl in, Lu Tingxiao leaned over and kissed her on the lips. Ning Shi hadn't slept well for several consecutive nights. After explaining everything to Lu Tingxiao and relieving all the pressure, she couldn't take it anymore and fell asleep on the way back. At this moment, the girl opened her eyes in a daze and looked at the gentleman in front of her. Are we home? Yes. Lu Tingxiao nodded. We're home. Ning Shi put her arms around the man's neck. I'm sleepy. I want to sleep, Lu Tingxiao said. Go back to sleep? The girl immediately frowned. Are you going to accompany me? Lu Tingxiao almost blurted out the word accompany. He calmed himself down and said reluctantly, I have something to deal with. Can I let Xiaobao accompany you? Ning Shi immediately nodded obediently. Okay. Xiaobao, accompany your mother. Lu Tingxiao immediately turned to his son and instructed. And Xiaobao didn't need Lu Tingxiao to say anything. He had already taken off his shoes and climbed into bed to accompany his mother. Mom, Xiaobao will accompany you. Ning Shi hugged the soft and fragrant little bun and kissed him. She was extremely satisfied. Lu Tingxiao kissed his son and wife's foreheads respectively and then straightened up. Lu Jingli, who was completely dumbfounded, said, Hey, I'm still here. 1 or 2 of you? 3 of you? Can any of you talk to me first? Also, what was the meaning of this familiar scene of abusing a dog? And it was a family of 3. It was completely different from what he had imagined. After settling Ning Shi down, Lu Tingxiao gestured for Lu Jingli to follow him to the study. Lu Jingli naturally followed him. Brother, what the hell is going on? Have you broken up with Cici? Lu Tingxiao shot him an icy glare, and Lu Jingli immediately gulped weakly. This young master is a godly diviner. Could it be that I guessed wrong this time? Judging from the current situation, it was obvious that his reputation as a marvelous mathematician had indeed been ruined. Have you investigated what we talked about? Lu Tingxiao asked. Lu Jingli didn't know what Lu Tingxiao was talking about. Huh? What? Lu Tingxiao. You heard it from Ning Xiuhua. When Lu Jingli heard this, his expression immediately turned ugly. The results of the preliminary investigation are, this matter is true. Little Cici did give birth to a stillborn baby. As for the specific situation, because I've been worried about you and little Cici, I haven't looked into it in detail. Lu Tingxiao. Go investigate. The more detailed, the better. Lu Jingli was a little surprised to hear this. Previously, his brother's attitude towards this matter was clearly that he didn't care at all. Now that he came back from City C, why would he suddenly ask him to investigate this matter? Lu Jingli's eyes darted around, and his brain suddenly went online. Brother, don't tell me. Little Cici wanted to talk to you about this? Lu Tingxiao didn't say anything, which was a tacit agreement. Lu Jingli was about to cry. Are you kidding me? That's all? Then didn't he scare himself for so long? After breaking down for a long time, Lu Jingli finally calmed down. Okay. As long as it wasn't a breakup, he could destroy his reputation as a marvelous mathematician. Speaking of which, he suddenly admired Xiaobao. Damn, he was simply the pillar of the family. Look at his calm demeanor. Next, Lu Tingxiao and Lu Jingli exchanged information with each other. After hearing this, Lu Jingli was furious. Fuck, who the hell is so shameless? He's simply a beast. Brother, don't worry. I will definitely find this beast. Chapter 1378. In a small house in the old city, Ning Tianxin sat on the sofa with a helpless expression on her face. She had been looking for a hospital for the surgery these days, but the Mo family seemed to have done something. She found a few hospitals, but they all rejected her with the reason that her body wasn't suitable for the surgery, or they had to wait for at least half a month. Just when she was about to think of other ways, Mo Ling Tian's parents came to her door. Ning Tianxin opened the door and was surprised to see a middle-aged couple with an extraordinary aura You are? You must be Tianxin. We are Ling Tian's parents. I'm really sorry to come here so suddenly. Can we talk to you for a bit? As Kong Shui spoke, she sized up the girl in front of her. She saw that the girl was dressed in plain home clothes without any makeup. She was slim and graceful, like a lotus flower that had just emerged from the water. Kong Shui immediately had a favorable impression of her. Her sister was right. This girl was indeed different from the other girls. Of course, please come in. Ning Tianxin couldn't lock the two elders outside, so she had to invite them in. Suppressing the uneasiness in her heart, Ning Tianxin poured a cup of tea for them. You don't live with your families? Mo Jianzhong looked around the house and asked casually. I moved out after I went to university. Are you still in school? I'm in graduate school. Mo Jianzhong nodded in satisfaction. She was still a student. No wonder she looked so innocent. Ms. Ning, can I call you Tianxin? Kong Shuhui's tone was unusually gentle. Ning Tianxin nodded. Mrs. Mo, please. Ah, Tianxin, I'm sure you're clear about the reason why we're here today. Now that you're carrying the flesh and blood of our Mo family, I'll definitely make Ling Tian take responsibility, so you don't have to worry at all. Don't be impulsive. Don't hurt this child. We will definitely seek justice for you. Kong Shui purposely emphasized the words, don't hurt the child, obviously knowing that Ning Tianxin was looking for a hospital for the surgery. Ning Tianxin's expression was a bit forced. She thought about her words and said, Mr. Mo, Mrs. Mo, Ling Tian and I have already discussed how to solve this. So the result of your discussion is to abort the child? Is human life such a joke in your eyes? This is simply ridiculous. Mo Jianzhong couldn't help but say angrily. Kong Shui immediately glared at her husband. Isn't it all your son's fault? Why are you being so fierce to the heavens? What if he's scared? Mo Jianzhong's voice suddenly dropped a few pitches. I'm not fierce. I'm angering that stinking brat. Kong Shui patted Ning Tianxin's hand lightly. See? Annie and your Uncle Mo are on your side. You don't have to fear anything. At night, in a private room of the Eaton Bar in the capital, Mo Ling Tian gathered a group of scoundrels and stayed in the nightclub for 3 days and 3 nights in a row. He was in a drunken state. Young Master Mo, what's going on? Someone who didn't know the truth asked the person beside him. Immediately, someone in the know replied with a gossipy expression. You still don't know? Recently, young Master Mo was being forced into marriage. Everyone in the circle is talking about it. Forced marriage? Wasn't that normal? Isn't young Master Mo being forced to get married by his family? The person who spoke was puzzled. The insider moved closer to the man with an explosive expression. It's different this time. This time, someone is going to die. Chapter 1379. That person's face was filled with shock. Damn, it can't be. No wonder young Master Mo is so miserable this time. Young Master Mo's parents are going crazy thinking about their grandson. Young Master Mo will go crazy this time. Are they going to get married because of their son? Sigh. Our infatuated man finally waited for his goddess to come back. His biggest rival Lu Tingxiao is taken. It's the right time, the right place, and the right people, but he actually made such a scene. Which woman? She's so smart. Even young Master Mo fell for it. I'm not sure about that. Young Master Mo. Young Master Mo, stop drinking. Seeing that Mo Ling Tian drank too much tonight, the others were afraid that something would happen to him, so they all went to persuade him. However, no one could persuade him. Mo Ling Tian drank like he was drinking water. He simply looked like he wanted to drink himself to death. He kept muttering, Xiao, Zhao, all right, whoever started the trouble should end it. I think we should call Miss Guan over. Otherwise, if we let him drink like this, I'm afraid something will really happen. The few of them gathered together and discussed for a while. Then, one of them called Guan Ziao. After about an hour, Guan Ziao finally came. The others tactfully walked out, leaving the space for the two of them. Why did you drink so much? Guan Ziao frowned and took the wine glass from the man's hand. After seeing clearly who the person in front of him was, Mo Ling Tian, immediately hugged her tightly. His face was full of despair. Xiao, Xiao, you know, right? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean it. It was an accident. I was drunk and mistook her for you. I don't like that woman at all. You know, I only have you in my heart. I like you. I've liked you since the first time I saw you when I was 6 years old. I've liked you for more than 20 years. I've been waiting for you to come back. No one can replace me. Other than you, I won't like anyone else. Guan Ziyao's eyes flashed when she saw the man's deep emotions. She was very clear about Mo Lingtian's feelings for her since a long time ago. It was impossible to say that she wasn't moved at all. Unfortunately, in her eyes, the only one who was worthy of her was Lu Tingxiao. How could she be willing to lose to that lowly woman as a loser and settle for the next best thing, Mo Lingtian? Her pride would never allow it. How did your family know about that woman's pregnancy? Did that woman say that? Guan Ziyao frowned. Although she had never thought of being with Mo Lingtian, she still felt a little uncomfortable when she heard such news. Mo Lingtian's face turned pale. The doctor she met when she went to the hospital for a checkup happened to be my aunt. At that time, my aunt learned that the child was mine from the conversation between her and her cousin. And then she told my parents, such a coincidence? Guan Ziyao muttered. Mo Lingtian's mind was in a mess. He held Guan Ziyao's hand and said, "These are not important. In any case, except for you, I will not marry anyone." Guan Ziyao slowly retracted her hand. Lingtian, I'm sorry, but it's impossible between us. I really don't want to lose you as a friend. Didn't we agree to be friends for life? It's really difficult for me to see you like this. Chapter 1380. Is it because of this? Mo Lingtian asked with a trembling voice. Guan Ziyao frowned. Lingtian, I believe you're not the kind of person who messes around outside. Maybe you were set up by that woman, but it's already happened. Mo Lingtian said agitatedly. It was an accident, and the child would never be left behind. Lu Tingxiao, you can accept the same thing. Why can't I? Guan Ziyao's expression changed. Even if it didn't happen, it's still impossible for us. Then she turned and left. Mo Lingtian hurried to catch up. Xiao, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. He had just taken a few steps when two people stopped him. Young master. Old master wants you to go back. Get out. Get out of my way. Mo Lingtian's face was full of anger. Young master, please don't make things difficult for us. I told you to get out. Did you hear me? Young master, please. They looked at each other and forced him into the car. Mo Lingtian drank too much and couldn't get away from them. He could only watch Guan Ziyao's figure disappear into the night. It was late at night, but the Mo family's house was still brightly lit. After being brought home, Mo Lingtian saw his parents in the living room. Not only that, but there was a girl sitting opposite Mo Jianzhong and Kang Shui. It was Ning Tianxin. Look at yourself. Mo Jianzhong's face was filled with anger when he saw Mo Lingtian's drunken appearance. Mo Lingtian stared at Ning Tianxin on the sofa as if he was staring at something terrible. Why are you here? The fear, disgust, and even suspicion in his eyes were like poison needles. Ning Tianxin's face turned pale. She had already called Mo Lingtian many times and sent him countless text messages, but Mo Lingtian had not picked up or returned any of them. Mr. and Mrs. Mo suddenly came to her and persuaded her to leave her child behind. She couldn't say a lot of things because of her awkward identity, and she couldn't contact Mo Lingtian either. She could only come back with her parents and wait for Mo Lingtian to come back, so they could talk things over. She didn't expect. Mo Jianzhong said angrily, "What kind of attitude is this? Your mom and I went to invite Miss Ning here?" Kang Shui said softly, "I called Tianxin over because I wanted us to sit down and discuss how to resolve this. Ling Tian, escaping won't solve the problem." Mo Lingtian laughed in a low voice. Solve what solve? Your so-called solution. Isn't it for me to marry her? Is it wrong for us to let you marry her? To do such a thing? Shouldn't you take responsibility? How did I give birth to a thing like you? Mo Jinzhong flew into a rage. Ling Tian, the child in Tian Xian's stomach is your own flesh and blood. Are you really going to be so heartless? Kang Shui also had a sad expression on her face. Mo Lingtian's face was full of malice. In your eyes, I'm just a tool to carry on the family line. Have you ever thought about my feelings? Not even once. Have you ever considered who I truly love? Beast! Mo Jianzhong slammed the table hard. He was so angry that he almost fainted. You've caused trouble for that woman for so many years and done so many ridiculous things. Did I really force you to marry someone else? Your feelings, your love. Have you ever thought about what kind of price a good girl would have to pay for your mistakes? Are you still a man for saying such things? Chapter 1381. Ah, what man? When Ziao told me it was impossible, I was already not a human. Mo Lingtian laughed somewhat crazily. After he finished speaking, his cold gaze swept across the three people one by one. You want me to marry her, right? Fine. I'll do as you wish. I'll marry whoever you want me to marry. As long as it's not Ziao. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter to me. After Mo Lingtian finished speaking, he staggered and fell to the ground. Kang Shui was shocked. Ah, Lingtian. The living room was in a mess until the servants helped Mo Lingtian into the bedroom upstairs. After a while, in the living room downstairs, Kang Shui looked at Ning Tianxin, who was sitting on the sofa, apologetically. Tianxin, I'm so sorry to have made you suffer. This stinking brat is just talking nonsense after drinking too much. Don't take it to heart. Mo Jianzhong said with a dark face. Tianxin, don't think too much. He has to get married even if he doesn't want to. Go back and get ready. Tomorrow, I'll bring this brat to your family to propose marriage. Ning Tianxin looked at the two old people's concerned faces. Her eyes were slightly warm. Thank you, Mr. Mo. Mrs. Mo. Kang Shui patted her hand. Good girl. I know that you like our Ling Tian. Don't worry. That brat just can't change his mind for the time being. After he gets married and gives birth to a child, he will definitely be able to understand who is truly good to him. Ning Tianxin's tears fell. She forced herself to calm down and nodded. Okay. Kang Shui and Mo Jianzhong saw that Ning Tianxin's emotions had calmed down and she didn't mention the abortion anymore. They finally calmed down. Tianxin, it's too late now. Why don't you stay here for the night? Kang Shui said. Thank you, Mrs. Mo. But I'd better go back. I still have to tell my family. Kang Shui nodded in agreement. Oh, that's right. That's necessary. I'll ask the driver to send you back. Can I go up and see Ling Tian's? Ning Tianxin asked. Silly girl, of course you can. Go now. Upstairs, Mo Ling Tian's bedroom. The door creaked open. Ning Tianxin walked to the man's bed and sat down. She stared at the man's face quietly. Even in his dreams, the man's face was still filled with despair and pain, and he was still muttering about his love. In a daze, Mo Lingtian opened his eyes and seemed to see the person sitting on the edge of the bed. His face was full of mockery. Ning Tianxin, I will marry you. Are you satisfied now? Ning Tianxin closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and smiled. I'm satisfied, at least in this life. You said you wanted to marry me. Even if the words marry her made her heart ache. As soon as Mo Lingtian finished speaking, he drowsily fell asleep again. He muttered, Ziao. Ziao, don't go. What should I do? I'm already not worthy of you. How can I love you like this? Good night. Ning Tianxin bent down, kissed the man's eyebrows, got up, and left. Chapter 1382. The taxi drove for half an hour and stopped at a secluded alley in the suburbs of the north of the city. You can't go in. You have to walk for a while. The driver peeked at Ning Tianxin from the rearview mirror with a strange expression. She looked like a pure and innocent college student. He didn't expect that she would come to this private clinic alone in the middle of the night. Girls who came to this kind of place were almost all aborted. Okay, thank you. Ning Tianxin calmed down, paid the driver, and got out of the taxi. In front of her was a dark alley. There was a shiny sign on the building at the end of the alley. The sign said Antai Hospital. Although it was called a hospital, it was just a few rooms. At best, it could only be called a clinic. Ning Tianxin subconsciously pressed her belly. Her steps were as heavy as lead. She didn't know how long it took before she walked forward step by step. The dark alley was like a giant beast, swallowing the girl's figure bit by bit. Hello, the nurse at the front desk was eating sunflower seeds and watching TV on her phone. She saw someone coming in from the corner of her eyes. She said without looking up, "Abortion? Yes. Do you want to do it now or now? Now. Go next door to pay the fee. You can do the surgery after you pay. How long will it take to finish? It depends. Let's do a checkup first. It usually takes a few minutes or half an hour at most. Don't worry, it will be quick. Our doctors do this kind of surgery every day. They're all very experienced." Okay, after paying the fee, they did a symbolic checkup. In the operating room, an older doctor said while preparing the surgical tools, "Okay, go wait outside. The surgery will start in 10 minutes." Ning Tianxin nodded blankly and sat down on the bench with the paint peeling off. In order to abort this child, she almost went to all the hospitals she could find these days. But now, there was no extra inquiry, no warning, and no waiting. As long as she paid, she could do the surgery. It was so fast that she couldn't react. She could only respond mechanically. 10 minutes later, the child who shouldn't have come, the child who caused his father so much pain, the child who caused all this chaos was finally going to leave this world. Ning Tianxin lowered her head. Her hair covered her gentle eyes. In her palm, which was so fair that it was almost transparent, was a B-scan ultrasound photo. In the photo, the fetus had already begun to take on a human form. It had small hands and feet, and it was curled up there obediently, so cute, plop. Her tears dyed the photo. The girl, who had been sitting there in a daze and motionless, was now tightly clutching the photo to her chest. She was crying silently, and her body was trembling so violently that it was almost spasming. "Baby, sorry, I'm sorry. Mom can't keep you, sorry. Mommy loves you." She had never told anyone how much she missed this child, even though his arrival was so unexpected, even though he had caused her so much pain. She clearly remembered how her heart had softened when she had seen him in the machine for the first time. But she knew, just like the hopeless hope she had for Mo Lingtian, this child never belonged to her. "Mo Lingtian, this is the last thing I can do for you." Chapter 1383. It was late at night in the palace. Ning she had been in a deep sleep ever since she returned from Sea City because of the mental pressure she had been under over the past few days. She was suddenly awakened by a call from an unknown number in the middle of the night. To avoid waking up the little bun in bed, Ning she answered the phone. "Hello, who's this?" "This is Antai Hospital. Do you know Miss Ning Tianxin?" "Hospital?" Ning she's heart missed a beat. "Ning Tianxin, she's my cousin. What happened?" "She had an abortion in our hospital. There was an accident during the operation, and she's bleeding now. We can't handle it with our medical facilities. She needs to be transferred to another hospital. Tell her family to come here right now. Otherwise, we won't be responsible if she dies here." The person on the other end of the phone gave Ning she an address and hung up the phone. Ning she froze, feeling as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. "What's wrong?" Lu Tingxiao's worried voice came from behind. Ning she suddenly came back to herself. Her fingers holding the phone trembled violently. "Lu Tingxiao, something happened to my cousin. I have to go to the hospital right now." "Which hospital?" "It's called Antai Hospital. It's on Zhongshan Road in the north of the city." After saying that, Ning she rushed out regardless of anything else. She was wearing pajamas and slippers. Ning she found that her car hadn't arrived. She was so anxious that she wanted to go back to Lu Tingxiao. Just then, a white Bugatti Veyron stopped beside her. Lu Tingxiao rolled down the window. "Get in." Ning she opened the door of the passenger seat and sat down. There was a pair of shoes and a white mask in the car. "Change your shoes and put on the mask," Lu Tingxiao said. Then the white sports car disappeared into the night like a flash of lightning. 20 minutes later, the car stopped at a remote alley. Ning she pushed the door open and ran towards the hospital. The moment she saw the so-called hospital, Ning she's heart fell to the bottom. How is this a hospital? This was simply an illegal clinic. Why was Sister Tianxin having an operation here? They had clearly promised to ask her to go with them during the surgery. Did the hospital make a mistake? Ningxi rushed into the hospital with a glimmer of hope. Where is Ning Tianxin? The nurse at the door looked pale. Go forward, the operating room. What took you so long? He couldn't take it anymore. If he died here, wouldn't that ruin our reputation? Hurry up and get him out of here. Ningxi was furious, but she didn't have time to argue with him. She quickly rushed into the operating room, followed by Lu Tingxiao. As soon as she pushed open the door, Ningxi's eyes were stung by a patch of blood red. Seeing that the girl lying on the operating room with a pale face was really Ning Tianxin, Ningxi's mind went blank, and the last hope in her heart disappeared. The sky was getting brighter, but Ningxi's heart was getting heavier and heavier. Even after Ning Tianxin was transferred to Ren AI Hospital, she still couldn't believe that the girl being saved in the operating room was Ning Tianxin. Chief Lu, the patient's condition isn't very good. I'm afraid you have to prepare for the worst, the doctor said in a heavy tone, then quickly returned to the operating room. A few days ago, he was still perfectly fine, but now his life could be in danger at any time. Chapter 1384. Ningxi's mind was filled with the image of the girl lying on the operating table. She was trembling and her legs were weak. Why? Why did it become like this? It's my fault? It's all my fault? I should have been with her. Ningxi was almost drowned in self-blame. Lu Tingxiao put his arm around the girl's shoulder and said, Don't think too much. It has nothing to do with you. Something must have happened to Mo Lingtian. Otherwise, Ning Tianxin wouldn't have gone to a small clinic alone in the middle of the night to abort the baby. Mo Lingtian. Ningxi gritted her teeth, and her eyes were full of anger. She took out her phone and searched for Mo Lingtian's number in the phone's contact list. After dialing the number, he received a notification that the phone was turned off. Ningxi was so angry that she almost killed him, but she couldn't leave the hospital now. Don't worry. Lu Tingxiao rubbed the girl's hair and dialed Mo Jianzhang's number. It was early in the morning, in the Mo mansion. At dawn, Missouri Lingtian was dragged up by Mo Jianzhang's servants. In the living room downstairs, Mo Jianzhang and Kang Shui were discussing what gifts to bring. On the sofa, Mo Lingtian's hair was messy. He was still wearing the pajamas from last night, and he looked indifferent. Seeing Mo Lingtian's indifference, Kang Shui said grumpily, Lingtian, we're going to propose marriage to the Ning family today. How long are you going to wait? Go wash up and change your clothes. Do you want others to think that our family doesn't know the most basic etiquette? Or do you want to go back on your words? You promised me last night. Mo Lingtian leaned back on the sofa and smiled. What's the difference if I agree or not? Anyway, this is the wedding you want. You can go. He swore that he would marry no one else but her. Even if his opponent was Lu Tingxiao, he never gave up. Today, he finally saw a glimmer of hope. But now, he was going to get married. His relationship with Zi Yao had actually ended in such a manner. In this life, he was trapped in a cage without any hope. Mo Jianzhang was furious. You idiot. Tianxin is such a good girl. You'll regret it one day. Upon hearing his father's words, Mo Lingtian's heart was filled with even greater gloom and rejection. He also thought that Ning Tianxin was different from other women. Even when Zi Yao said that it was too much of a coincidence, he didn't doubt it. But now, she promised him that she would abort the child, but she didn't. Instead, in just a few days, her parents were completely bought over by her. Thinking of this, the anger that Mo Lingtian had suppressed for a long time exploded at this moment. If she's really as good as you think she is, how could she force me to this point? If she was as innocent as you think, how could she have coincidentally met my aunt and let her know that the father of her child was me? Am I stupid or are you stupid? Or perhaps you don't even care what kind of person she is. You only care about a child to carry on the family line. I regret it. What I regret the most is that I misjudged him. Mo Jianzhang was about to lose his temper when his phone suddenly rang. The caller ID was Lu Tingxiao. Why would Lu Tingxiao call him so early in the morning? A trace of suspicion flashed across Mo Jinzhong's face as he picked up the call. Hello? Ting Xiao. What's the matter so early? Uncle Mo, is Ling Tian beside you? Yes, yes. Are you looking for Ling Tian? Uncle Mo, please put me on speaker. Lu Tingxiao's voice came from the other end of the phone. Chapter 1385. Mo Jianzhong didn't understand, but he still turned on the speaker. Then, Lu Tingxiao's calm voice came from the other end of the phone. Ning Tianxin lost a lot of blood during the abortion in the emergency room on the top floor of Ren AI Hospital. Lu Tingxiao's words resounded clearly in the empty living room, in the ears of Mo Jianzhong, Kong Shui, and Mo Lingtian. It was like a thunderclap. After a while, the three of them came back to their senses. Kong Shui snatched the phone from her husband and asked anxiously, Ting Xiao, what are you talking about? Yesterday, we tried to persuade Tianxin for the whole afternoon. When Tianxin returned home last night, she was still fine. She promised us that she wouldn't have the thought of aborting the child again. Originally, because it was too late, we wanted to ask her to stay at home for the night. She said that she wanted to go home to discuss the marriage with her father. The driver personally sent her to the door. How? How could she have an abortion? I've talked to Ren AI Hospital. If Tianxin goes there, there's no way I wouldn't know. Mo Jianzhong added. Hearing this, Lu Tingxiao finally understood why Ning Tianxin would go to such a remote private clinic to abort the baby. Last night, Ning Tianxin went to the private clinic in the north of the city alone in the wee hours of the morning. Kong Shuhui's body trembled. She still didn't want to believe it. Ting Xiao, how did you know about this? Lu Tingxiao's cold answer came from the other end of the phone. Ning Tianxin is my girlfriend's cousin. Xiaoxi received a call from that small clinic late at night. When we arrived, he was on the verge of death due to excessive blood loss, so we rushed over overnight and transferred him to Ren AI Hospital. Mo Jianzhong was full of regret. He asked anxiously, how is Tianxin now? The baby. How is the baby? Is the baby safe? The baby is gone. She's an emergency. The doctor said she might not be able to keep her uterus. Lu Tingxiao's words made Kong Shui and Mo Jianzhong completely dumbfounded. Kong Shui covered her mouth, choking with sobs. Mo Jianzhong forced himself to steady himself. Shui, hurry. Go to the hospital. Call Wanru too. We can't let anything happen to Tianxin. Otherwise, he would never forgive himself for the rest of his life. Kong Shui nodded repeatedly, sobbing as she made the phone call. Mo Jianzhong immediately asked the butler to prepare the car, and the two of them rushed out of the door. Behind him, Mo Lingtian was still sitting on the sofa in a trance, seemingly unable to recover from everything that had just happened. Abortion. The child was gone. She might not be able to keep her uterus. Heaven's heart after a long time. Mo Lingtian suddenly woke up with a start. He stood up with a swoosh and ran out of the door in a daze. On the way to the hospital, Mo Lingtian drove very fast. At the same time, he used one of his trembling hands to turn on the phone that had been turned off for the past few days. As soon as he turned on his phone, countless missed calls popped up. Most of them were from Ning Tianxin. Ning Tianxin's message box quietly laid there. Ling Tian, I've been to a few hospitals these past 2 days, but they all refuse to operate on me with all sorts of reasons. Maybe it's because of your family. Have you explained it to your parents? Ling Tian, reply as soon as you see this. Ling Tian, Mr. and Mrs. Mo came to my house to look for me today. Can you give me a call when you see them? Maybe we can talk it over with your parents. I'm sure they'll understand you. Chapter 1386. Ren AI Hospital. When Mo Lingtian arrived, Ning Tianxin had just been pushed out of the emergency room. The girl's lips were chapped, and her face was as pale as a piece of paper. Her skin was so white that it was almost transparent. Doctor, how is my sister? Ning Shi was the first to ask. The doctor's forehead was covered with sweat, and he looked exhausted. He sighed and said, Fortunately, you sent her to the hospital in time. Her uterus was saved, but the doctor said in a blaming tone, when she went to the hospital for a checkup, didn't the doctor tell her that she had a severe cold uterus? If she had an abortion, it would cause great harm to her body, and she might even be infertile. Now she had an operation in a small hospital which caused a lot of bleeding. I'm afraid it will be very difficult for her to get pregnant in the future. Alas, it's my fault. It's all our fault. If we didn't stop Tianxin from going to the hospital, she wouldn't have been forced to go to such a small clinic. Kang Shui looked at the girl on the trolley and couldn't stop crying. Mo Lingtian stood a few steps away from the trolley and looked at the pale girl on the trolley. Ning she saw Mo Lingtian from the corner of her eyes. She didn't care that Mo Jianzhong and Kang Shui were also here. She was about to rush over when Lu Tingxiao stopped her. Be good. Go and accompany your cousin. Leave this to me, okay? Ning she looked at Ning Tianxin and decided to take care of her first. Kang Shui and Mo Jianzhong didn't even look at Mo Lingtian. They all followed Ning Tianxin into the ward carefully. Then, only Lu Tingxiao and Mo Lingtian were left in the corridor. Lu Tingxiao walked to Mo Lingtian and didn't say anything. He just opened a video on his phone and handed it to Mo Lingtian. Mo Lingtian looked at the phone in Lu Tingxiao's hand and took it mechanically. Lu Tingxiao patted him on the shoulder and entered the ward. Mo Lingtian seemed to have lost his soul. He walked to the bench and sat down blankly with the phone in his hand. The video on Lu Tingxiao's phone seemed to be a surveillance video. In the video, it seemed to be a shabby small clinic. Mo Lingtian thought of something and his expression changed. Sure enough, the next second, Ning Tianxin's figure appeared in the video. Mo Lingtian's back tensed up subconsciously, and he stared at the thin back of the man. On the screen, Ning Tianxin looked absent-minded. She was all alone, asking the nurse questions. Then she paid the fee, did the examination, and sat on the bench, waiting. From the beginning to the end, the girl's expression was unusually calm. Until she was in the operating room, when the doctor told her that the surgery would start in 10 minutes. The girl clutched the ultrasound photo tightly in her hand, and she instantly fell apart from his angle. He could only see the girl's lowered head and trembling shoulders. She didn't even make a sound, but it made his heart feel as if it was tightly gripped by an iron hand, almost suffocating him. In the video, the girl's choking voice could be heard intermittently. Baby, sorry, I'm sorry. Mom can't keep you. Sorry. Mommy loves you. Ning Tianxin, you can start the surgery now. The doctor's voice came from the video. The girl raised her head in a panic, revealing a tear-stained face filled with extreme fear. In the next second, she quickly took out her phone and typed on it with trembling hands. It seemed like she was sending a message to someone. The expression on her face looked like she was looking for the last bit of redemption. However, in the end, the girl seemed to have thought of something, and the last bit of light on her face was extinguished. She wrote and deleted that long message, and her fingers drooped down. Mo Lingtian unlocked his cell phone and looked at the last message that the girl had sent him. Looking at the two lonely words, Lingtian, and the unfinished message, he clenched his fists tightly and sobbed uncontrollably. Chapter 1387. In the corridor, there were people coming and going. A man wearing pajamas and slippers sat on a cold bench, crying like a child. After an unknown amount of time, the door of the ward opened, and a tall man walked out. He stood in front of Mo Lingtian and said expressionlessly, "Are you done?" Mo Lingtian looked up slowly, his eyes full of bitterness. Lu Tingxiao, you're really cruel," Lu Tingxiao said. "I'm just afraid that my wife's hand will hurt if she hits you." Ning she had just walked out of a period of pain. She was exhausted and hadn't fully recovered yet. How could he allow her to worry or tire herself out? Mo Lingtian. How could a brother do that? Sometimes, men knew how to make a man suffer better than women. Even if he was beaten to death by Ning Shi, it couldn't compare to seeing Tianxin abort the child alone. When he thought of the girl entering the operating room, the desperate and empty eyes and the text message, his heart suddenly tightened to the point where he couldn't breathe. 3 days ago, When she told him that she would abort the child, her expression was so calm and relaxed, as if she didn't care at all. And he actually believed her in the end. He even suspected and misunderstood her maliciously. Emo Lingtian sat there with empty eyes. Lu Tingxiao, at the last moment. What did Tianxin want to say to me? What did she want to say? Lu Tingxiao glanced at him indifferently and then said calmly, at the last moment, Ning Tianxin wasn't a woman who loved you, but a mother. Out of a mother's instinct. She probably wanted to save her child, even if she had to bear all the malice and suspicion herself. As soon as Lu Tingxiao finished speaking, Emo Lingtian, who had just calmed down, immediately had red eyes. Lu Tingxiao continued, but she knew that you didn't want it and you wouldn't want it. So, in despair, she entered the operating room and killed her own child to fulfill your love. Even though she knew that she would be infertile if she had an abortion, even if she ruined her own life, she still wanted to save your life. Stop! Emo Lingtian grabbed his hair and screamed hysterically. When Ningxi walked out of the ward, she heard Lu Tingxiao's words. She saw Emo Lingtian's shoulders trembling violently, holding his head and howling in pain. Seeing Ningxi walk out, Lu Tingxiao immediately walked over to her side. There was no doubt which side his brother and wife were on. Are you still angry? Looking at Emo Lingtian's painful expression, Ningxi pinched the space between her eyebrows. Forget it, I won't beat him even if I'm angry. Beating him up now will only make him feel less guilty. Seeing Lu Tingxiao's cell phone kept ringing, Ningxi hurriedly said, Lu Tingxiao, Sister Tianxin is out of danger. Go to work. All right, call me if there's anything. And Ningxi nodded and tiptoed to kiss the man's lips. Lu Tingxiao, thank you. It happened so suddenly that she was in a panic last night. Everything was solved by Lu Tingxiao, and even Emo Lingtian had helped her to torture him. Lu Tingxiao stroked the girl's hair. Don't tire yourself out. Chapter 1388. After Lu Tingxiao went to the company, Mo Jianzhong, Kang Shui, and Kang Wanru walked out of the doctor's office one after another. They all looked very serious and didn't even look at Mo Lingtian, who was sitting on the opposite bench. Wanru, tell me honestly, how serious is the situation? Kang Shui asked nervously. Ningxi also looked over with a frown. Kang Wanru sighed. Director Liang said it very clearly just now, and I have nothing to add. In this case, it's basically impossible for her to get pregnant again. It's already very lucky that her uterus can be saved. Kang Shui couldn't stop crying. Her face was full of self-blame. What should I do? Mo Jianzhong looked at Ningxi with a dark face. Miss Ning, thank you so much this time. If you didn't come in time... By the way, do Tianxin's family know about it? Should I inform them? After all, it's such a big thing. Ningxi immediately shook her head and said with certainty, No, my grandpa is in poor health and can't be provoked. Sister Tianxin definitely doesn't want her mother to know and worry about her. As for my uncle, if he knows about it, I don't know what he will do. It will only make things more difficult for Sister Tianxin. I think that's what Sister Tianxin doesn't want to see. Ningxi said in a serious tone, Thank you for your concern for Sister Tianxin. I'll tell her that you've come to see her. As for Sister Tianxin, I'll take care of her. You can rest assured. Ningxi's words were very euphemistic, but it was equivalent to asking them to leave. After all, anyone from the Mo family could provoke Ning Tianxin. If you need any help, please contact us. Mo Jianzhong naturally understood Ningxi's meaning. He didn't have the face to stay here. After saying that, he looked at Mo Lingtian with a gloomy face and said, Why are you still sitting here? Isn't everything going according to your wishes now? Mo Lingtian didn't move, as if he didn't hear his father's words. Kang Shui wanted to say something, but stopped. In the end, she didn't say anything and left, shaking her head. Lingtian couldn't be blamed for this. They were also at fault. They were too anxious and didn't even listen to Tianxin's explanation. However, it was useless to say anything now. The only thing they could do now was to try their best to compensate. In one night, their daughter-in-law and grandson were gone. With such a huge blow, The two elders seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. At the entrance of the hospital, Kong Shui wiped her tears with a face full of sadness. Such a good girl. It's our MO family's fault. We're not blessed to have such a good daughter-in-law. I don't care what you and Ling Tian think. From now on, in my eyes, Tianxin is my biological daughter. After everyone left, only Ning Shi and Mo Ling Tian were left at the door of the ward. Mo Ling Tian stood up stiffly and walked towards the ward door. Ning Shi crossed her arms and leaned against the door frame. Seeing this, she slowly stretched out a leg to support herself, blocking Mo Ling Tian's way. Mo Ling Tian said, "Let me see her." Ning Shi, "From now on, if I let you get within 3 steps of her, I'll call you uncle." Mo Ling Tian said, "I'll just take a look." Ning Shi, "What can you do if I take a look?" Mo Ling Tian was speechless. He didn't know. He just wanted to see her. He wanted to see her like crazy. Chapter 1389. In the dead silence, a cell phone rang. Mo Ling Tian took out his cell phone reflexively. When he saw the name flashing on the screen, his face turned pale for a moment. The caller ID was Xiao. The child he regarded as a scourge was gone. Ning Tianxin didn't pester him anymore. His parents didn't force him to get married anymore. Even Xiao took the initiative to call him. After dawn, what awaited him was not endless darkness, but his life was back on track. Why did he feel that everything was meaningless? The only thought in his mind was to see her, to see her. Mo Ling Tian hung up the phone with Guan Xiao and looked at Ning Shi with a pale face. He still stubbornly repeated, "I just want to see her." Ning Shi looked at the man in front of her, and her eyes were as cold as ice. Mo Ling Tian, if you really feel guilty about Sister Tianxin, please don't show up in front of her again. This is the only thing you can do for her. Mo Ling Tian stiffened his back and stood still for a long, long time. After more than 10 minutes, the man finally took a slow step, turned around, and walked away step by step. Mo Ling Tian finally left. Ning Shi pinched her eyebrows aside and took out her cell phone to make a call. The phone rang and was picked up. Then there came a girl's surprised voice. "Hello? Brother Shi? Annie, are you free now? Can you do me a favor?" Before Ning Shi finished speaking, the girl's aggrieved cry came from the other end of the phone. "Brother Shi." Ning Shi immediately became anxious and hurriedly asked, "Annie, what's wrong?" "Brother Shi, I was grounded by boss." Ning Shi frowned. "Grounded? What did you do? Why did he ground you?" "I think boss may be jealous of me," Annie answered, sobbing. What?" Ning Shi was confused and didn't understand what Annie meant. "Brother Shi, since you asked me to meet that day, boss has sent someone to watch me and forbade me to go out. Most importantly, he also robbed me of the cookies you gave me. They have all been taken away." And Annie began to weep bitterly. Damn it. That guy actually dared to snatch the biscuit she gave to Annie? Was there a mistake? The corners of Ning Shi's mouth twitched and she was speechless. She quickly comforted the little girl on the other end of the phone. "Annie, be good. Don't cry, don't cry. It's just some handmade biscuits. I'll make more for you in the future. I'll make as many as you want. Don't be sad." Annie sobbed and then asked anxiously, "By the way, Brother Shi, why did you ask me for help? Are you hurt?" Ning Shi pinched the space between her eyebrows. "It's not me, it's a friend of mine. Is Satan at home or at the office?" "He should be at the company at this time," Annie replied. "Who's watching over you at home now? Is eldest brother here?" Ning Shi asked again. "It's Sister Shirlu. I don't know if eldest senior brother is here." "Okay, I got it. Wait for me." And the little girl answered obediently. After hanging up Annie's call, Ning Shi dialed another number. The phone rang for about a dozen times before the owner of the phone slowly picked it up. Then came the man's lazy voice that seemed to be still sleepy. "Hello. Hey, second senior brother. Come with me to the haunted house," Ning Shi said quickly. Chapter 1390. What haunted house? Tang Lang was still confused. Ning, she said, it's where Elder Senior lives. Tang Lang yawned. What are you doing there? Aren't you afraid of ghosts? Ning, she said, I'm looking for someone. Tang Lang was speechless. Looking for someone? Who are you looking for? Ning, she said, Annie. After a long silence, Tang Lang said, does Lu Tingxiao know that you want me to accompany you to look for a woman? I'm looking for Annie. She's grounded by Satan and can't come out now. Go there now, and we'll meet there later, Ning, she said quickly. I'm not going. What if I meet that pervert? Tang Lang snorted, determined not to obey. Of course, I'm looking for you just in case I need to deal with Elder Senior. She could deal with the others by herself. Fuck. Where's your humanity? Ning, she gritted her teeth. How dare you talk to me about humanity? Believe it or not, I'll throw the bill in your face. How much money have you owed me since you came back? What can you do with that small salary of yours? I'm the one who paid for you every time you fooled around outside. It's not even enough for you to sell yourself to me. And this is your duty as a bodyguard, okay? Tang Lang retorted unhappily. How is it not enough? My head was on the list of original sins with a bounty of 100 million US dollars, okay? Ning, she held her forehead. How dare you show off? After the call, Ning, she immediately rushed to the outskirts of the city where she lived in Yunshin. All the doctors said that Tianxin couldn't have children in the future. She wanted to find Annie to take a look at Tianxin. Even if there was only a glimmer of hope, she had to try. After changing into men's clothes, Ning, she drove her Xiaohei to the entrance of the gloomy old house in the outskirts of the city. Even though it was daytime, the house still looked eerie. It was no wonder it was called the most haunted house in the capital. However, because it was daytime and the horror movies she had watched seemed to have some effect, Ningxi was obviously much calmer this time. Tang Lang raised his head to look at the house in front of him and clicked his tongue. TSK, TSK, TSK. Just by looking at this house, I can tell that this fellow has basically bid farewell to girls for the rest of his life. Which girl will be willing to go home with him? Don't talk nonsense, hurry up. Ningxi held her breath, quietly pushed open the door, and slipped in. It would be best if he could bring Annie out without alerting anyone and bring her back half an hour later without anyone noticing. As Annie said, there seemed to be no one here today, not even 16. Ningxi smoothly avoided the alarms, climbed upstairs through the window, and then sneaked into Annie's room. Annie! Ningxi lowered her voice. Brother Shi. In the room, the little girl who was pounding medicine gloomily put down the things in her hand and ran over. Brother Shi, you're finally here. I miss you so much. Good girl. Don't cry. Ningxi comforted the little girl softly and said apologetically, Sorry, Annie, I have to trouble you again. Annie immediately shook her head. Brother Shi, don't say that. You saved my life. I'm afraid you don't need me. Chapter 1391. Tang Lang leaned against the door, the corners of his mouth twitching. That's enough. If I didn't know better, I would think you two were eloping. Hurry up. If Tang Yi is alarmed, I'll be the one in trouble. Ningxi took Annie's hand and quickly followed Tang Lang out. The three of them smoothly walked to the door, but just as they were about to go out, an accident happened. They saw Shirlu stumbling towards them with blood all over his body. Ningxi, Tang Lang, and Annie were all startled. When Shirlu saw Ningxi and Tang Lang sneaking out with Annie, she also revealed a surprised expression. But she didn't have time to think too much. She looked at the approaching danger behind her with a face full of fear. At this moment, an extremely sharp and terrifying palm wind suddenly struck towards 16. 16's face was filled with despair, as if he was on the verge of death. The next second, Ningxi pulled 16 behind her, grabbed Tang Lang next to her, and threw him to the front. Fuck. Tangxi, fuck you. She actually used him as a human shield. Tang Lang cursed as he met the attack with his palm. After seeing clearly who it was, Tang Lang was dumbfounded, his calves trembling. Tang Yi. At this moment, Tang Ye's eyes were scarlet red. He didn't wear his glasses. Obviously, he had completely lost his mind. Fuck. What's wrong with this guy? Tang Lang wailed as he hurriedly dealt with Tang Ye's almost crazy attack. 16 was still in shock as she looked at the man who held her waist and saved her, looking dazed. After a long while, she finally reacted. Tang Shi. After all, the last time she obeyed Feng Jin's order to kidnap Tang Shi, she was dressed like a weak underage girl and was so afraid of ghosts, completely destroying the image of the Tang Shi she once loved. So now seeing Tang Shi reappear in her memory, she couldn't react for a while. What's going on? Why does eldest senior brother want to kill you? Ningxi asked with a frown. 16 then came back to her senses. I don't know, brother Yi suddenly attacked me like crazy, as if he was stimulated by something. Stimulated? Ningxi's expression suddenly changed. In the past, Tang Yi did have similar situations, but it was very rare. What could have caused him to be stimulated like this? Tang Shi, come and help me. I'm going to die because of you. Not far away, Tang Lang, who was being pushed back step by step by the crazy Tang Yi, roared. Facing Tang Yi, who had completely lost his rationality, even Tang Lang would find it hard to deal with him. Moreover, Tang Lang didn't know what was going on with him. He had clearly said that he would work hard to cultivate, but in the end, he was still idling around every day. Ningxi knew that Tang Lang had something on his mind, but this fellow always had a sloppy look on his face. Every time she asked, he would change the topic. It was obvious that he didn't want to talk about it, so she couldn't do anything about it. Take care, 16. Ningxi carefully placed 16 on the sofa and quickly joined the battle. 16 had interacted with Tang Shi last time and knew that Tang Shi's skills had deteriorated to an appalling state, so he immediately looked over worriedly. However, they found that the situation had changed because of Tang Shi's participation. It had only been a few months since they last met, but Tang Shi's martial arts skills had improved tremendously. Besides, her moves seemed a bit strange. She had never seen them before. Even Tang Lang was shocked. Fuck! Stinking brat! Where did you go to steal from? Why haven't I seen these moves before? How could he secretly learn them when I'm his master? Chapter 1392. It's precisely because you're such an unreliable master that I have to secretly learn from you. Ningxi rolled her eyes at him. Then, the three of them fought fiercely. Although she had learned a few moves from Han Xiao, she could only deal with Tang Yi for a while. Soon, the two of them couldn't handle Tang Yi anymore. Tang Ye's eyes were already completely bloodshot. He struck Ningxi's shoulder and then fiercely attacked Tang Lang's vital point, until a lazy voice came from not far away. Ah Yi. The moment that indifferent voice sounded, Tang Yi suddenly stopped all his movements as if his acupuncture points had been hit. Tang Lang was sweating profusely as he dodged Tang Ye's fatal blow. Ningxi also bent over while panting. Then, she subconsciously looked at the white-haired man not far away. Yun Shun. It's over. This guy is back. At this moment, the crazed look in Tang Ye's eyes slowly receded like the tide. In the end, only a pitch-black emptiness and a trace of hidden desolation remained, looking at Tang Ye's expression. Ningxi's face was full of lingering fear. What exactly happened? There was really something wrong with eldest senior brother today. After who knew how long, Tang Ye's eyes finally regained clarity. He stared straight at Tang Lang, who was in a sorry state. Come with me. Tang Lang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Damn, how can I not go over? Wouldn't it be courting death if he went over now? He was really going to die because of that brat Tang Shi. Tang Ye's voice was cold. If you don't come over, then continue. If you don't come over, then continue fighting? Fuck, I'm coming. Tang Lang didn't say anything else and immediately followed him. Ningxi looked worriedly at the two people in the distance. What happened to eldest senior brother? The white-haired man chuckled, looked at her, and said faintly, Darling, shouldn't you be worried about yourself? Stealing from me while I'm not here? Huh? Ningxi's face instantly darkened. What the hell did he mean by stealing? Ningxi was still worried about eldest senior brother and second senior brother. She didn't want to cause more trouble, so she took a deep breath and said, I have something urgent to discuss with Annie. It will only take half an hour. What can I do for you to let her go with me? Just tell me your conditions." The man raised an eyebrow. "Beg me?" Ningxi begged, "Please." The man immediately revealed a disappointed expression. "TSK. Boring." Ningxi. "So, what exactly do you want?" Looking at Ningxi's crumbling expression, the man said, "Pay the commission." Seeing that there was hope, Ningxi immediately asked, "Sure. How much?" The man replied, 10,000 biscuits. I want you to make it yourself." Ningxi, 10,000 biscuits. Why don't you die from eating them? Annie, who was standing at the side, immediately blamed herself for implicating Big Brother Shi. As expected, Big Brother was still angry about the biscuits. She should have been more careful and not let Big Brother see those biscuits. She knew that Big Brother's brain worked differently from ordinary people. Annie was extremely anxious and weakly spoke up for Ningxi. "Big Brother Shin, 10,000 seems to be too much, and you have to make it yourself." Hearing this, Yunshin touched his chin thoughtfully and then nodded. "It seems to be a bit much. Then let's make it 9,999. Ningxi, Annie, 16. Chapter 1393. What's the difference between 9,999 and 10,000? Believe it or not, I'll kidnap all the girls in your organization. The veins on Ningxi's forehead bulged. She took a deep breath and said, 9,999, right? Fine, but half an hour will be a month. Whatever, it was more important to take Annie to see Sister Tianxin first, just in case. The man's white hair swayed in the wind, and he smiled. Deal? Ningxi pulled Annie and ran away as if she was afraid that he would go back on his word. Brother Shi, are you really going to do so much? How can you finish it all by hand? Annie looked worried. Of course, I'll do it. I'll stuff myself to death. Ningxi said and glanced in the direction where Tang Lang and Tang Yu left. She didn't know why eldest senior brother was looking for second senior brother. Forget it. Yunshin is here and eldest senior brother is awake. Tang Lang is thick-skinned. He'll be fine. Get on. Hold on tight. Ningxi helped Annie put on the helmet and drove to the hospital. Ren AI Hospital. Annie looked curiously at the girl, who was as pale as a piece of paper on the sickbed. The girl's complexion was very poor, and she looked abnormally weak, but one could still see that she was a very beautiful woman without makeup. Seeing how nervous Ningxi was and how he went to the haunted house to look for her even though he was afraid of ghosts, Annie looked a little sad and asked, Brother Shi, is this your new friend? She's my cousin, Ning Tianxin, Ningxi answered. Ah, she's your cousin? The girl looked cheerful. What's wrong with her? She looks like she lost a lot of blood. Yes, she lost a lot of blood. She just had an abortion. Because it was done in a small hospital, there was an accident during the operation and she lost a lot of blood. She was just rescued and her uterus was almost removed. All the doctors say she may not be able to have children in the future. Ningxi's tone was very serious. Annie nodded. Well, I'll take a look at her. Okay. Ningxi immediately pulled a chair for Annie to sit down. Annie sat down by the bed, gently picked up Ning Tianxin's wrist, and began to feel her pulse. Ningxi held her breath and stood by the side, not daring to disturb him. As time went by, Annie's face became more and more serious, and Ningxi's heart sank little by little. Even Annie couldn't do anything about it. After about 5 minutes, Annie finally stopped checking Ning Tianxin's pulse and put her wrist back under the blanket. Annie, how's my cousin? Ningxi immediately asked. Annie sighed and said, Did she have a cold womb before? Yes. Annie said in a low voice, although her womb is a little cold, it's not a big problem. She'll be fine after some rest. But now, with the addition of the two factors, her womb is already cold and the abortion has seriously damaged her body. Blood is the mother of qi, and she has lost a large amount of yin blood, so she has no qi to rely on, which means that both her qi and blood are deficient. Is there no way to cure it? She really can't get pregnant again? Hearing Annie's serious words, Ningxi asked anxiously. Annie deliberated over her words for a moment before saying, "The possibility of pregnancy is extremely small, but it's not impossible. The problem is with her physical condition. Even if she's pregnant, it's impossible for her to keep it." Chapter 1394. As Annie said this, she cautiously felt Ning Tianxin's pulse again, and then said, "But Brother Shi, don't worry. Fortunately, you told Brother Yunshin that I can come out for a month. During this month, I'll help this sister nurse her body and remove the lochia in her body with my acupuncture skills. As long as she does what I told her, takes medicine on time, and has a good rest, it's possible for her to get pregnant in 3 to 5 years, or at least 1 to 2 years, when her uterus and vitality are restored." Hearing this, Ning Shi, who had been nervous, finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Great. It's good that there's hope. Annie, thank you so much." "Brother Shi, you don't have to thank me. Brother Shi's sister is my sister. Ah, by the way," Annie looked at the girl on the sickbed, thought of something, and reminded him, "In this case, the psychological state of the patient is also very important. I don't know what this sister has been through. Brother Shi, you must comfort her and keep her in a good mood. If necessary, you can also invite a professional psychiatrist." "Okay, I see. Thank you for reminding me. I'll contact a doctor later. I happen to know one." Saying this, Ning Shi looked at Ning Tianxin on the sickbed and looked a little worried. At this time, a cell phone rang. It was Xiaodao. Ning Shi remembered that the opening ceremony of Sky of the Nine Clouds was going to be held today, and hurriedly answered the phone. "Hello, Xiaodao? Brother Shi, are you up? The opening ceremony will be held in the studio in 2 hours. Don't forget." "Okay, I see." Ning Shi hung up the phone. "Brother Shi, if you have work to do, go ahead. I'll take care of my sister." Annie said. Ning Shi hugged the little girl gratefully. "Thank you, Annie. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know what to do. I'm leaving now. I'll come back as soon as I finish. Remember to call me if you need anything. If you need anything, call this number and ask him to help you." Ning Shi said and gave her Xiong Ji's phone number. "Okay, Brother Shi, go ahead." After leaving the ward, Ning Shi immediately called Xiong Ji. "Miss Cece, what can I do for you? My cousin is hospitalized. Sure Xiao can follow me these few days. Help me keep an eye on the hospital. There's a girl in the ward called Annie. She's my friend. If she needs anything, help her buy it. Just run some errands." Of course, this is not the point. The point is, remember, don't let Mo Ling Tian get close to this ward. Got it? Don't let Mo Ling Tian get close to this ward, Ning Shi deliberately emphasized. "Remember, Miss Xiaoxi, I won't let him get close." Xiongji didn't ask why and directly guaranteed. "All right, that's all for now. You've worked hard." Ning Shi left after giving him all the instructions. Film City. After putting on makeup and changing clothes, Ning Shi arrived half an hour earlier. The opening ceremony was an auspicious day that was calculated in advance. If it was late, it would be considered inauspicious. On the scene, the leading actors, directors, producers, supervisors, and other main crew members arrived one after another. In addition, there were several important investors. Of course, most of them were the media. It was very lively. The table for worship had been prepared and was covered with red velvet. On the table, there was an incense burner, a roast suckling pig, and fresh fruit for worship. Chapter 1395. Ningxi had been busy since midnight and felt dizzy. After dealing with the media, she wanted to find a place to rest before the ceremony started. However, as soon as she opened the door of the lounge, she saw Jiang Mai, Mo Chinxiu, Su Yin. The three of them each occupied a corner, and the atmosphere was indescribably strange. Jiang Mai and Mo Chinxiu were there, but why was Su Yin also in the lounge? Damn it. She had better find another place to rest. However, it was not that easy. When Ningxi was about to leave, Su Yin stood up and walked towards her. Xiaoxi, Xiaoxi? Mo Chinxiu, who had been secretly observing Jiang Mai, immediately looked in Su Yan's direction. Did Su Yin know Ningxi? And he called her so intimately. But Mo Chinxiu was still here, So Ning, she had to turn around and talk to him. President Su, what's up? Can we talk? I have something to tell you. Sure. Ning, she could only follow Su Yin out to prevent Mo Chinchio from seeing through her and getting hold of her. Mo Chinchio's expression changed when he saw the two of them leave the lounge and head outside. This Su Yin, even the way he looked at Ning, she was weird. Was Ning Shi's boyfriend not Jiang Mai, but Su Yin? Didn't Su Yin have a girlfriend? And they were about to get married. Damn it, don't tell me that this guy is messing around with a married man. Jiang Mai looked at Ning, she who was leaving with Su Yin. What were they going to talk about? A moment later, Ning Shi and Su Yin walked to the small garden behind the hotel. Just say it. The ceremony is about to start. Ning Shi glanced at her watch. Su Yan's gaze was complicated as he looked at the girl in front of him. After a long time, he finally took out a large red invitation card and handed it to her. My wedding date with Shui Luo is set on the 8th of next month. Ning Shi took the invitation card and glanced at it casually. Congratulations. Su Yin felt even more uncomfortable when he saw Ning Shi's attitude. If she had been as sarcastic as before, it would have proved that she cared about him. But now, seeing that Ning Shi took the invitation and was about to leave, Su Yin clenched his fists, suddenly caught up with the girl, and grabbed her hand. Xiaoxi, don't you have anything to say to me? Before Ning Shi could speak, a hand suddenly reached out from behind and forcefully pulled Ning Shi's hand from Su Yan's. Ning Shi turned her head and raised her eyebrows at Jiang Mai, who suddenly ran over. Golden Retriever? Jiang Mai glared at her unhappily. What's there to talk about with an ex? What if I get caught on camera? After saying that, she glanced at Su Yin coldly. Young Master Su, you're about to get married. Please pay attention to your image. Even if you're not afraid of gossip, my little junior sister is afraid of gossip. Su Yin frowned as he watched the two of them leave. Not only were they close, but Jiang Mai even knew about his relationship with Ning. Could it be that the rumors were true? Ning Shi was really dating Jiang Mai? After taking Ning Shi away, Jiang Mai immediately said unhappily, "Why did you waste your time talking to that scumbag?" Ning Shi shrugged. He obviously came here to ambush me today. I might as well get rid of him once and for all. Jiang Mai looked at her with a look of disbelief. Really? Don't tell me you still have feelings for your first love? Chapter 1396. After all, the first love was the most unforgettable. Do you think I'm stupid? Ning Shi said grumpily. Jiang Mai's face became more serious. Are you going to use those methods to deal with Su Yin? For example, hook up with him and then dump him? Ning Shi raised her eyebrows. Hook up with Su Yin? If I really wanted to hook up with him, do you think Ning Xiulo would still be around? Jiang Mai. He couldn't refute that. Ning Shi suddenly stared at Jiang Mai. Golden hair, have you heard of a saying? Jiang Mai frowned. What saying? Ning Shi glanced at him lightly. Acting as if nothing happened is the most ruthless revenge. It was too disgusting to ask her to hook up with Su Yin. Ning Shi continued. By the way, there's one more thing. Usually, if a person can't forget his ex, it must be because the current one isn't good enough. So, now that I have my sweetheart, why do you think I can't forget my ex? Jiang Mai. What a cheap mouth. Jiang Mai took a few deep breaths to recover from the pain of being abused for the umpteenth time. He looked at the sweet girl opposite him and mumbled, Did you make up with Lu Tingxiao after the fight? Look at your smug face. He had been manic for a while and didn't dare to be within 3 steps of her. Ning Shi recalled last night. Spring Breeze Town. The wheat field, completely ignoring Jiang Mai's question. He revealed an incomparably gentle look and was immersed in his own world, murmuring, Alas, I suddenly have an impulse to propose to my sweetheart. I have to speed up the process of accumulating dowry. Jiang Mai. Pretend I didn't ask. Soon it was time for the opening ceremony. The main cast and crew worshipped the gods one by one. Finally, the director lifted the red cloth covering the camera and announced the start of filming. The audience cheered and applauded. Meng Shi, who was standing beside Ning Shi, had been looking around absent-mindedly since the beginning of the opening ceremony. At this time, she walked up to the director and asked, "Director Guo, is President Yun not here today? I've informed Boss Yun, but such a big shot definitely won't come to our small opening ceremony." Guo Qixing replied, "Got it." Meng Shi looked disappointed, then asked, "Will he really be making a guest appearance?" About that, at that time, the other party only mentioned it on the phone. As for whether he will come or not, I really don't know. After all, it is rumored that the boss's temperament is somewhat unpredictable. Everything will only be known when the time comes. Guo Qixing's tone was also not too sure. Meng Shi thought for a while and suggested, "By the way, Director Guo, isn't the role of Lung Aoshue's mysterious master still vacant? Why not let President Yun make a guest appearance? This is a righteous and positive role. Moreover, it is very popular among the original readers. Certainly more suitable than the father of the devil cult witch, isn't it?" Hearing this, how could Guo Qixing not know what Meng Shi meant? He coughed lightly and said awkwardly, "I'm afraid this isn't something I can decide. Boss Yun personally chose the role of Yun Sitian." He chose it himself? Why did he choose this role? Maybe it's because this character's surname is also Yun, and Boss Yun has taken a liking to it? The thoughts of the rich are unpredictable. Ning Shi listened to the conversation between Meng Shi and Guo Qixing. She pinched her eyebrows and sighed, indicating that she was very tired. Chapter 1397. After the opening ceremony, Ning Shi said that her family was sick and declined the following social engagements. Then she rushed back to the hospital to take care of Ning Tianxin. Ning Shi saw a man running towards her as soon as she arrived at the gate of the hospital. "Tang Shi, you bastard. Hey, second senior brother, you're back." Ning Shi glanced at the man in front of her through the sunglasses. Tang Lang's hair was messy and his clothes were dusty. Leaves were all over his body. He looked pretty intense. "Tsk tisk, stinking brat. I want to help you, but you actually abandoned me and left by yourself. I didn't want to disturb you, and eldest senior brother. I haven't asked you yet. What did you do to provoke eldest senior brother to this extent?" Ning Shi moved closer to ask curiously. Tang Lang's face changed, and he said grumpily, "Go away. You're a kid." After saying that, he disappeared without a trace. Ning Shi looked at the direction in which Tang Lang left, and a trace of worry appeared on her face. Maybe it had something to do with Tang Lang's betrayal. She had wanted to ask Lu Tingxiao about it, but Tang Lang obviously didn't want anyone to know, so she didn't want to ask. She walked to the door of the ward and saw Xiongji guarding the door dutifully like a door god. "Miss Xiaoxi, did anyone come here when I was away?" Ning Shi asked. "No." Ning Shi nodded. "That guy was smart." Ning Shi pushed the door open and saw Annie talking to Ning Tianxin on the bed. "Sister Tianxin, you're awake?" Ning Shi hurried over. "Brother Shi, you're back." "Sister Tianxin just woke up," Annie said. Ning Tianxin glanced at the 4 drip on the back of her hand and the white ward. She looked confused. "Xiaoxi, why am I here? You had an operation in that small clinic and couldn't stop the bleeding. So you were transferred here in the early morning." Hearing this, Ning Tianxin subconsciously touched her flat belly. Her eyes regained focus, and the memory of last night also appeared in her mind bit by bit. Ning Shi looked at Ning Tianxin's blank face, and her heart skipped a beat. "Sister Tianxin, how do you feel now? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Ning Tianxin shook her head slowly and looked at Ning Shi. "Sorry, Xiaoxi. I made you worry." Ning Shi sighed. "You almost scared me to death." "Does your family know?" Ning Tianxin asked immediately. "Don't worry, I didn't tell my family. I helped you hide it. However, the Mo family already knows about it. This morning, Mo Lingtian's parents and aunt came to see you. I was afraid that you would be upset, so I asked them to leave. Also, Mo Lingtian said that he wanted to see you. I also asked him to leave. Your body still needs to be observed for a few days before you can be discharged. At that time, you should stay at my place for a while. I really don't feel at ease leaving you alone. Also, this is my friend Annie. Her medical skills are excellent. With her nursing you, your body will definitely recover. Thank you, Xiaoxi. Ningxi noticed that Ning Tianxin's expression had been indifferent since she woke up. When she heard what she said, there was no sadness or joy, not to mention any intense reaction. But this made Ningxi even more uneasy. However, she knew that no matter how worried she was, there was nothing she could do about it. She could only rely on herself and time to get over it. Chapter 1398. For the past few days, everyone in the Liu group had been on high alert. Soon it would be the time for the Liu family's annual family meeting. At that time, the stewards of the Liu family from all over the country and overseas would gather in the capital for a week-long party. So they had to make sure that nothing went wrong during this period. The company's board meeting had just ended, and the others left one after another, leaving only Liu Tingxiao and Liu Jingli in the conference room. Liu Jingli leaned back in his chair weakly, looking as if his body was about to be hollowed out. Damn it, it's the scariest time of the year again. Every time it was the annual family meeting, apart from business, those people were most enthusiastic about trying to get women for him and his brother. His brother was the one who got the most women. Of course, he had a lot of women too. Even he, who liked hot girls, couldn't resist them, let alone his brother who didn't like women. Although his brother was no longer single this year, his relationship with Ning, she couldn't be made public. Even if it was made public, if Ningxi's family background wasn't powerful enough to make those people give up, they would only crazily try to get women for him. After all, it was the position of the mistress of the family, which involved huge interests. Who didn't want to give up their own woman? At the same time, what happened to Ning? She was also a big hidden danger. Liu Tingxiao looked at the dusk outside the window. How's the investigation of Xiaoxi going? Liu Jingli scratched his head. It's not easy to find out the man's identity. It's too difficult to find out who the man was that night in such a big hotel with so many rooms. The trickiest thing is that it's Qin Yuan. Brother, you know that Qin Yuan is famous for its privacy in the capital. There are no surveillance cameras in the entire hotel, including within a radius of 10 miles. But brother, don't worry. I'll check everyone who stayed that night one by one. I don't believe I can't catch that beast. I'll give you 7 days off. No problem. I'll get it done as soon as possible. Peach Blossom Dock. After Ning Tianxin was discharged from the hospital, she temporarily moved here. In addition to Annie, Ningxi also invited Qin Mufeng. In the yard, the night breeze was slightly cold. Ning Tianxin sat on a cushioned rattan chair, holding a cup of Chinese medicine tea that Annie had specially made for her. The air was filled with the slightly bitter fragrance of Chinese medicine. Glancing at the man beside her, the girl said calmly, "Dr. Qin, Xiaoxi is too nervous. I'm really fine. When I decided to have the operation, I had already prepared for the worst and was sure that I could bear the worst result. From the beginning until now, I have never regretted what I have done. Sometimes holding on to uncertain hope is more painful than completely losing hope, isn't it?" Qin Mufeng pinched the space between his eyebrows in frustration. He realized that he was completely useless. I also know Mo Lingtian. To be honest, I can't imagine that a girl like you would fall for him. One was a famous hedonistic son of a wealthy family in the imperial capital, while the other was a gentle and beautiful girl who was as strong as a rose. Their personalities were poles apart. Ning Tianxin looked up at the moonlight. It's actually very simple to fall for someone at that age. There's no need for an earth-shattering reason. Maybe it was because you happened to be wearing a white shirt that I liked that afternoon, or maybe it was because of a look or a look back. Chapter 1399. I remember the first time I saw him was on the bus. I I was on my period and my stomach hurt so much I couldn't stand. He was sitting next to me. He had dyed his hair and was wearing a strange outfit. He was full of hostility, but he still stood up to give me his seat. Chin Mu Feng looked at the girl's expression and couldn't help but think of the saying, "Love doesn't know where it starts, but it runs deep." Damn it. Was Mo Ling Tian blind? After Chin Mu Feng and Ning Tianxin finished their conversation, Ningxi dragged Chin Mu Feng into the kitchen. "Chin Mu Feng, tell me honestly, how is Sister Tianxin?" Chin Mu Feng looked helpless. "My lady boss, I've told you many times, okay? Don't worry. Tianxin is the type that looks soft on the outside but tough on the inside. Her calmness isn't suppressed. It's real calmness. She definitely won't fall sick from depression or commit suicide." Ningxi asked, "Are you sure?" Chin Mu Feng said, "Trust my professionalism." "Okay." Ningxi didn't really believe him. Chin Mu Feng glanced at the girl in the courtyard. The girl's figure was extremely thin and slender. Her face was pale and frail, but there was no trace of sorrow between her brows. Instead, she was calm and collected, and the glimmer in her eyes seemed to be able to warm the years. Ningxi waved her hand in front of Chin Mu Feng's eyes. "What are you looking at?" Chin Mu Feng coughed lightly and looked away. Based on my past experience, I thought there would be a big problem with her mental state. However, after these few days of interaction, she really surprised me. Anyway, Tianxin is really fine. This time, she put herself in a desperate situation and came back to life. Hearing Chin Mu Feng's words, Ningxi relaxed a little. "So, the psychiatrist, have completed my mission and retired. The treatment is over," Chin Mu Feng said. Ningxi was surprised. "Huh? So fast? It's only been a few days." Chin Mu Feng said, "Nonsense. If I continue to be her psychologist, how am I going to pick up girls?" Ningxi's eyes widened. "What did you say?" Cough, cough, cough. "I didn't say anything." Chin Mu Feng quickly corrected himself. Ningxi narrowed her eyes and stared at him. "You said it. You said to pick up girls." Chin Mu Feng broke out in cold sweat from the glare. He had no choice but to surrender. All right. That? Tianxin, she's exactly the type I like. I want to chase her." In his line of work, he was not allowed to have a relationship with patients that was beyond the relationship between doctor and patient. "Fuck, you're a beast. I've just experienced such a huge blow." Ningxi's face was instantly filled with killing intent. Chin Mu Feng hurriedly waved his hand and explained, "Please, it's precisely because of this that I urgently need another relationship to get rid of the pain of the previous one." Ningxi stared at him warily. "Sister Tianxin's condition. You don't mind?" Chin Mu Feng said matter-of-factly. "What's there to care about? It's not her fault that she loves the wrong person. As for the problem of children, it doesn't matter if I have children or not. I have a total of 7 brothers and sisters, and I don't need to carry on the family line. My parents are both abroad, and they're quite open-minded, so I don't really care about these things." Ningxi frowned. "Are you serious?" Chin Mu Feng let out a long sigh. "Big brother, Tianxin is your cousin. How would I dare to say that I'm not serious? If I'm just playing around, I'm not afraid that you'll break my 3rd leg." Ningxi harumphed. "It's good that you know. Cough, but don't tell her that I like Tianxin. It'll scare her. And although her current mental state is still considered stable, there are serious repercussions." Chapter 1400. What side effects? Ningxi asked anxiously. "It's hard to accept someone again. Didn't you notice that she doesn't care if she can have another child? She's prepared to spend the rest of her life alone. If she finds out about my feelings, I won't stand a chance," Chin Mu Feng analyzed. "Actually, I'm worried about that too." Ningxi sighed. "You don't have to worry now. If it was someone else, they wouldn't stand a chance. But I'm a professional," Chin Mu Feng said confidently. Ningxi raised her eyebrows and looked at him. "Chin Mu Feng, I suddenly realized that your major in psychology is quite useful when it comes to picking up girls. Of course. Let me tell you, there's no girl I can't get unless I don't want to." Ningxi's face turned serious. "Damn, how many girls have you slept with?" Cough, cough, I'm just saying. Till now, Tianxin is the only girl who can make my heart palpitate. Okay. Seeing Ning, she's staring at him as if looking at a big bad wolf. Qin Mufeng broke into a sweat. Don't be so nervous. I didn't say that I would kidnap your cousin immediately. I just have a good impression of her. Even if we can't be lovers in the end, we can still be friends. I won't force her. Hearing Qin Mufeng's words, Ningxi relaxed a little. They had only known each other for 3 days. She wouldn't believe him if he said he couldn't get her. At this moment, a black car was parked not far away from the courtyard of the Peach Blossom Cove. A man was leaning against the car door. He was still wearing the pajamas he rushed to the hospital that day. His beard was unshaven, and he had a cigarette in his mouth. He stared at the courtyard in the distance without blinking. The phone on the driver's seat kept flashing. Mo Lingtian glanced at the name on the screen and finally picked up the phone. Hello? Lingtian, what happened? Why didn't you pick up the phone? A girl's worried voice came from the phone. Nothing. What's the matter? I'm sorry, Lingtian. I was too harsh that night. It's okay. Lingtian, your voice doesn't sound right. Are you sick? No. Are you still upset because of that woman? Actually, that kind of person is just doing it for money. If they refuse to compromise, it's because they want more. Mo Lingtian absent-mindedly listened to Guan Ziyao's words on the other end of the phone. Halfway through, he seemed to have seen something and hurriedly hung up the phone. Then, he nervously stared in the direction of the courtyard. Under the doorlight, a familiar figure walked out of the house and walked closer and closer in his direction. Mo Lingtian quickly snuffed out the cigarette in his hand and then moved sideways to hide under the shadow of a tree. The thin and slender figure walked to a trash can 7 or 8 steps away from him and threw a black garbage bag into it. Under the dim light of the night, one could vaguely see that the girl's thin body had become even thinner. Her face was pale and weak, as if a gust of wind could blow her away. Sister Tianxin, why did you come out? Leave the trash to me? Ningxi chased after her and carefully supported Ning Tianxin. I'm not that weak. It's just a few steps. Ning Tianxin sounded a bit helpless. That won't do. Annie said you have to rest for a few days. After the girl went into the house, Mo Lingtian slowly walked out from the shadow of the tree after a long time. He had been quietly watching nearby for 3 days and 3 nights. Finally, he saw her, but when he really saw her, his first reaction was to hide. Ha, Ningxi was right. So what if he saw her? He knew he was too ashamed to see her, but he couldn't control himself. These days, no matter where he stayed, he was full of anxiety. He was exhausted but couldn't sleep for even a minute. He only felt better when he was closer to her. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.